Chapter 282. There must be a reason for something abnormal. Fang Yan understood Lu Chaoga. And he also understood Phoenix. Neither of them were women who liked to show off. And neither were they the kind of cute little women who would squeeze their chubby faces together with their boyfriends to pout and act cute. After taking photos, they would post them on their WeChat moments and wait for everyone to like them. One of them was cold and quiet, while the other was arrogant and seductive. Many things were seen through without saying anything, and they would use their own unique way to protect and repay the kindness of others. Did they take the wrong medicine today? That night, the rain was too heavy, and I couldn't see anything around me. It was dark and the road was slippery, and the car didn't have its lights on. If it wasn't for Fang Yan who suddenly rushed over and hugged me and pushed me away, I think I would have become a pile of bones by now. That was the first time I realized how close death was to me. This time, it wasn't just to show off their love. Even Phoenix could hear Lu Chaoga's indescribable gratitude and trust towards Fang Yan from her narration. Although it was dangerous to be a hero saving a damsel in distress, the reward was also relatively rich. Of course, that was under the condition that you weren't too ugly. After listening to Lu Chaoga's narration, Phoenix exclaimed and said, "So something like this happened between the two of you." Although Fang Yan and I can be considered childhood sweethearts and have gone through many trials and tribulations together, I always felt that it wasn't as passionate as the two of you. When he held you in his arms, you must have felt very happy, right? Lu Chaoga smiled and said, "He held me in his arms, and then rolled on the ground to avoid the impact of the car. At that time, I definitely didn't feel anything strange. Now that I think about it, it must have felt very sweet." Phoenix seemed to have just noticed Fang Yan's existence and said, "Fang Yan, sit down and have some tea." "What? You don't want Miss Lu to tell the story between the two of you? I think it's pretty good. In the past, everyone thought you were a lazy and cunning B***tch. Today, after listening to Miss Lu's words, our understanding of you has been completely subverted." Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan exchanged glances with each other. Both of them were unwilling to give up. Why would a woman speak up for Junior Marshal Uncle? So why wouldn't he be a jerk? Junior Marshal Uncle has been guiding the industry trends, okay? "Now I feel that you are a loyal and righteous bitch," Phoenix praised. "I've never thought that something like this would happen to you. You will be willing to do anything for a person, for a woman." As she said that, Phoenix looked at Fang Yan with a slightly resentful expression. She didn't know if she regretted that the brave Fang Yan didn't belong to her, or if she blamed Fang Yan for not changing for her. Fang Yan walked to Lu Chaoga's side and sat down, saying in a deep voice, "What exactly do you two want? Don't tell me it's for my own good." Phoenix glanced at Fang Yan and said, "I'm praising you. Can't you tell? Two strangers meeting for the first time. Naturally we need to find some common topics. The only thing we have in common is you. So, we naturally have to talk about you. What's so hard to understand? You heard it from the side. Did we ever say anything bad about you? Didn't you see it just now, when Miss Lu said that you pushed her away from the front of the car? Her eyes were red with emotion. You didn't arrange the car that caused the accident, right?" Phoenix giggled and said, "Of course not. I believe that the ice wasn't broken by you. And I also believe that you didn't arrange the car. You're such a coward. Even if you wanted to be a hero to save the damsel in distress, you wouldn't do such a stupid thing. Why is there so much sweat on your forehead? Do you feel uncomfortable? It's not that I want to criticize you, but your chest injury is so serious. Before you recover, don't run around." Lu Chaoga didn't pour tea for Fang Yan. Instead, she cleaned the cup, poured a cup of water, and placed it in front of Fang Yan, saying, "I heard that you're injured, so I came to see you. Your wound hasn't healed yet. Don't drink tea, drink more water." Phoenix praised and said, "Miss Lu really knows how to take care of people, much better than those women who only know how to fight and kill." Yi Ro frowned slightly, her fingers grasped hard, and a piece of blue brick above the window was pulled down by her. She didn't look back, but with a flick of her wrist, the brick flew towards Phoenix, who was sitting on the sofa in the living room. Whoosh! As the brick flew, sand and dust fell. Phoenix pointed her finger, and the cup of hot tea in her hand flew towards Yi Ro. The brick and the teacup brushed past each other in the air, and Phoenix raised her hand to catch the brick, while Yi-Ro chopped with her palm, and the teacup flew towards Phoenix at an even faster and fiercer speed. Phoenix extended her hand to receive the teacup. However, just as her fingers made contact with the teacup, a cracking sound rang out. The teacup exploded into pieces, and the tea inside splashed all over Phoenix's slit dress. Obviously, Yi-Ro had added a calming force to the tea, and when another force tried to touch and control the teacup, that force immediately counterattacked. As a result, the two forces collided, and the teacup shattered. This was not something that could be done by someone with great magic. Fang Yin could do it, but Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan definitely couldn't do it. Phoenix was furious. She slammed her palm on the tea table in front of her, jumped up high, and kicked Yi-Ro's back with her golden high heels. Yi-Ro tilted her body, and Phoenix went out through the window. As Phoenix passed by Yi-Ro, she grabbed the scarf around Yi-Ro's neck. Yi-Ro tiptoed and followed Phoenix out of the yard. Bang, bang, bang. This was the sound of their fists and feet colliding. Crack, crack. This was the sound of a branch breaking. Clink, clank, clank. This was the sound of a flower pot in the nursery falling to the ground and shattering. Fang Yin sighed softly and continued to drink the warm water inside the teacup. He had sweated a lot just now, and he was indeed a little thirsty. Lu Chaoga was shocked and said, "They're fighting, aren't you going to go and see?" "I don't dare to go," Fang Yin said. "Why?" "To calm them down. Otherwise, they'll team up and beat up the third person who breaks in," Fang Yin said. But Lu Chaoga couldn't imagine it. How could these people fight just because they wanted to? And they were so fierce. "If you don't believe me, I'll do an experiment for you," Fang Yin said. Fang Yingying. Fang Yingying's face was pale, and he knelt down in front of Fang Yin and begged, "Junior Martial Uncle, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have been lazy. I shouldn't have washed your face when you were unconscious. I shouldn't have eaten a few meals a day. I shouldn't have used up your treasured ambergris." This time, it was Fang Yan's turn to be shocked, and he shouted, "You used up my ambergris?" "Fang Haohan also used some. We were afraid that you wouldn't wake up, and these natural treasures would be wasted," Fang Yingying explained. So Fang Yin kicked Fang Yingying out. Soon enough, Fang Yingxiong flew back screaming in pain. In the process of entering and exiting, his face and body were punched countless times, and his eyes were like panda eyes. Fang Haohan hid in the corner, holding his head, and didn't dare to breathe. Lu Zhaoge looked at Fang Yingxiong with lingering fear in his heart. He thought to himself, no wonder Fang Yin wasn't willing to come out to mediate the situation, even though the two women were fighting so fiercely outside. Who would dare to go out? But I'm sitting with these two women, drinking tea, chatting, and arguing. If they fight, even my bodyguards don't dare to warm up for them, right? The fight between Yi-Ro and the Phoenix became more and more intense, and the flowers and plants in the yard suffered. Lu Zhaoge's expression became more and more unsightly as he heard the clanking sounds of jars breaking. Those were her painstaking efforts. Yi-Ro used her whirlwind kick, and as her body rolled, she kicked 108 times in a row. When the Phoenix tried to block, it revealed an opening, and Yi-Ro kicked it away. Clang! The Phoenix's body hit the wall heavily, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. But with the help of the rebound, she rushed toward Yi-Ro again. Bang! The Phoenix punched Yi-Ro in the stomach, and Yi-Ro took a few steps back. Seeing the Phoenix chasing after her, she tiptoed, and a large piece of sharp porcelain scraped toward the Phoenix's face. The Phoenix turned 90 degrees, and while dodging the attack of the porcelain, she also lost the best chance to knock down Yi-Ro. The two distanced themselves from each other, and looked at each other with hostility. The number one in the inner world is just SOSO. The Phoenix sneered. I've been wanting to fight with you for a long time. In that case, why did you make me wait until now? I just didn't get the chance. Good food is not afraid of late, and now I have the chance, right? I hope you won't let me down. But you, the number one in the inner world, have already let me down. Yi-Ro didn't want to stop. She tiptoed, and her body flew up again. She punched the Phoenix's head, and even if she didn't get a concussion, she wanted to paralyze the Phoenix's face. The Phoenix ran a few steps, and her body also jumped up. Her long legs flew out, and the pointed high-heeled shoes stabbed toward Yi Ro's chest. Puncture your big breasts. Boom! They quickly exchanged dozens of blows in the air, and then their bodies brushed past each other. Yi Ro's fist missed, and the phoenix's high-heeled shoes stabbed into the wall with great force. A big hole appeared in the wall, and the heel of the high-heeled shoes was twisted off. Fang Yan had to stand up. He stood in the yard and shouted, "Stop or I'll be disfigured." Plop! Fang Yan's body was knocked away. He struggled to get up from the ground, covered his bloody face, and said, "I knew it. I'll be disfigured if I keep hitting." Chapter 283. Fang Yan's sacrifice was worthwhile. At least Phoenix and Yi Ro didn't continue to fight. Lu Chaoga was also worried. If they kept fighting like this, the whole building, no, the whole Rosefinch High School would be torn down by them. How could he pluck a brick out of the wall just by grabbing it with his hand? Phoenix and Yi Ro distanced themselves from each other. They looked at each other with hostility, like two aggressive roosters. Puff! Phoenix suddenly laughed. She looked at Yi Ro and said, "What? You don't want to give up?" "You are the one who doesn't want to give up," Yi Ro said with disdain. "Of course I don't want to give up," Phoenix said. "If I can't get it, I won't let you get it. Who told me to hate you so much? I think Lu Chaoga is very good, much better than you." "I don't want what others snatch," Yi Ro said coldly. "I hope you keep your word," Phoenix said with a sly smile like a fox. Phoenix left, so did Yi Ro. Phoenix was very happy when she left. She patted Fang Yan's face and told him to take care of himself. She also patted Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan's shoulders and told them to take good care of junior martial uncle. In fact, Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan also wanted her to pat their faces. They had even prepared their faces in advance. Unfortunately, Phoenix didn't let them get what they wanted. Phoenix also chatted with Lu Chaoga for a long time. She kept praising Lu Chaoga's beauty and saying that she and Fang Yan were a match made in heaven. It was as if the two of them had been friends for decades, and she knew Lu Chaoga very well. Yi Ro also left. Yi Ro left very quietly. She just glanced at Fang Yan, and then turned to leave. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan wanted to stay but didn't dare to send them off. He just followed behind Yi Ruru timidly, and watched her walk out of the courtyard. When she stepped out of the gate, Yi Ruru walked in a free and easy manner, while Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan walked in a wretched way. Fang Yin lay on the sofa, and Lu Chaoga helped him apply the ointment on the wound on his face. The wound on his face from the Battle of One Sword Peak had yet to heal, and now he had to suffer another innocent injury. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to go out and meet anyone for 10 days to half a month. Now you know what kind of people they are, right? Why are you getting involved in their conflict? Do you know how dangerous this is? Fang Yin kindly reminded him. Although it was too late to remind him now. "I've long heard that you're going to have a duel with the Japanese swordsman, but I didn't go to watch it. I dare not. I have confidence in you. I know you will win. We've been through so many things together, and you've never lost, but I still dare not go there. I'm afraid that something bad will happen. I was the first one to come in, and I opened the gate. Then Miss Yi Ro came, and the last one was Miss Phoenix. Miss Phoenix and Miss Yi Ro don't get along very well, because Phoenix has been provoking Miss Yi since she came. Miss Yi doesn't like to talk, so she left her seat and stood by the window alone. I can see that she wants to wait for you to come back. Otherwise, she would have left a long time ago according to her character." Lu Chaoga was one of the people involved in the incident. She told some of the things that happened before Fang Yan came back. There are only a few ways for women to fight. First is to rope in more people to support themselves. Second is to suppress and isolate the opponent. The frequency of this method is very high. Miss Phoenix did it very well. She needed someone to cooperate with her, and I became the person who cooperated with her. Seeing Fang Yan frown, Lu Chaoga smiled and said, "Miss Phoenix is a person who can be easily seen through, but it's hard for Miss Yi to let others know what she's thinking. Since Miss Phoenix wants to provoke her, why don't I help her? In this way, I can see a more real Yi Ro." "Did you see it?" Fang Yan asked. "I saw it." Lu Chaoga put the medicine box in the medicine box on the coffee table. "What did you see?" "Miss Yi is simpler than Miss Phoenix," Lu Chaoga said. Fang Yan smiled and said, Didn't you say you don't understand? Miss Yi is quiet and serious, which makes people feel that she is cold and arrogant, and keeps people thousands of miles away. This kind of first impression is not good, Lu Chaoga explained. On the contrary, Miss Phoenix is warm and generous. Although she is extremely arrogant, she is good at making topics, which makes people feel like a spring breeze when they get along with her. There is also a trace of joy in your heart. You feel that even such a charming woman is willing to be friends with you, and you feel respected and loved. In this case, shouldn't you like Phoenix more? I don't hate Phoenix because she lives a heavy life. A dancing phoenix wearing shackles, no matter how beautiful she is, can't fly to the Chinese parasol tree. But I like Miss Yi more. Why? Fang Yan sat up straight and looked at Lu Chaoga with some doubt. To be honest, Yi Rou's relationship with others had always been very bad. Whether in the Jianghu or the Jianghu, as long as they were familiar with her, they would eventually fall in love with Phoenix. She was too cold, too arrogant, too strong, and too violent. It would be strange if such a person had friends. Therefore, Yi Rou had always been excluded from various circles since she was a child. Fang Yan, Bai Xiao, and other friends of Phoenix Bailey Lu often went up the mountain to catch birds, went into the water to catch fish, went skiing on the ice, and fought sharks in the sea. But Yi Rou was never there. Everyone had heard of Yi Rou. Everyone knew about Yi Rou, but no one had ever asked them to play with Yi Rou. Of course, the person who hated Yi Rou the most at that time was Fang Yan, because he was the most direct victim. Young people cared about their reputation, especially those who thought they were good at fighting. If anyone dared to scold them or spit on them, they would fight with their lives. Yi Rou often beat him up like a dog, and he would go to Phoenix for help with all his wounds. There was even a long time when Fang Yan stubbornly blamed the failure of his first love on Yi Rou, because no woman would like an idiot who was always beaten black and blue, and couldn't get out of bed. Today, he heard someone say good things about Yi Rou, which really surprised Fang Yan. Because how bad can a woman who doesn't even know how to express her love be? Lu Chaoga said, I can't see Phoenix clearly, but I can see Miss Yi clearly. She likes you. Fang Yan was stunned. Lu Chaoga sighed softly and said, Don't pretend you don't know. Lu Chaoga took the medicine box to the kitchen, and then went to the yard to clean up the broken branches and tiles. A tile pricked her finger, and bright red blood flowed out. She took out a band-aid from her wallet in her pocket, and put it on her finger. She could take good care of herself. This was a habit she had developed when she was very young, and she didn't want to show her wound to others easily. She liked Yi Rou more, and she felt that Yi Rou was the same kind of person as her. Because of the serious injury, Fang Yan asked for a few days of sick leave from school. Zhang Xiaofeng, the principal of the school, came. After seeing Fang Yan's injury, he sighed and said that since he had a cold, he should take a good rest and not worry about the 9th class. He would find an experienced teacher to take care of him for a few days. Li Mingqiang, the director of education, and Zhu Jian, the deputy director, also came. Li Mingqiang cursed Fang Yan as soon as he saw him. Then he asked if he had applied medicine, and there was still half a bottle of golden chrysalis muscle nourishing powder at home. Fang Yan hurriedly said no. Zhu Jian was an honest person. He asked in a low voice what happened to Fang Yan's injury, if he had quarreled with his girlfriend, and when he would take his sister-in-law to dinner. Because of Fang Yan's special status in the school, almost all the middle and senior leaders of the school came during his days off. Huang Haoran, Tangqing, and Suing also came. They came to visit Mr. Fang on behalf of the students of the 9th class. What's more, he came with several fruits in his hands. Huang Haoran deserved to be the son of a journalist. As soon as he saw Fang Yan, he exclaimed and said, Mr. Fang, Director Li said that you had a cold and had to ask for a few days off. Why was your face beaten like this? Who beat you? Did you call the police? Tangqing smiled and said, I know the reason, but I won't say it. Suing glared at Tangqing angrily and said, Tangqing, you're so annoying. It's fine if you don't know, but if you know, you won't share it with us. What kind of classmate are you? Tangqing looked at Suing and said, It's not that I don't want to say it, but Mr. Fang definitely doesn't want me to say it. Mr. Fang, don't you think so? Fang Yan was extremely angry. If his body had not recovered, he would have jumped up and beaten this guy. For his behavior, there was only one word to describe it. He deserved to be beaten. Fang Yan asked about the situation in the class. Huang Haoren said that Zhang Yu, the language teacher of the first class, would be in charge of the language class for the time being. Fang Yan could understand such an arrangement, since Fang Yan and Zhang Yu won the bet last time. The first class and the ninth class had almost become natural enemies. The school wanted the students to compete with each other, but they didn't want them to be hostile to each other. Therefore, it was necessary to let Zhang Yu go over and ease the relationship with the students of the ninth class. Fang Yan had never thought that Zhang Yu was his natural rival. He told Huang Haoren and the others to cooperate with Mr. Zhang Yu's work and not let Zhang Yu be embarrassed in the ninth class. Huang Haoren nodded and agreed. He listened to Fang Yan. Su Ying looked at Fang Yan with a smile and said, "Mr. Fang, you don't dare to go to the classroom because of the injury on your face, do you? In fact, it's completely unnecessary. Even if you are disfigured, in my heart, you are still the most handsome language teacher in the world." An idea came to Fang Yan's mind and he said, "Su Ying, I have something to trouble you with. I have a document to write, but I don't have the energy now. The handwriting of Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen is too ugly. Can you help me write it?" Huang Haoren was full of displeasure when he heard this. He said very actively, "Mr. Fang, what do you want to write? I can help you write it. My handwriting is much better than Su Ying's." Fang Yan trembled with anger and said, "Girls are more careful. It's better for Su Ying to write it." Chapter 284. Fang Yan took a pen and paper and handed it to Su Ying. He said, "Write an application. Application for the excellent teacher of the year. I'll read it and you write it." "Okay." Su Ying agreed readily. It was rare for Mr. Fang to ask his students to do something, which was something to be proud of. Application. Dear school leader, I'm Fang Yan, a language teacher in class 9 grade 1. My name may be a little strange to you, but when it comes to what I've done, Su Ying's handwriting was small and graceful, which looked like her. However, it was not the handwriting that Fang Yan was looking for. Fang Yan looked at Su Ying and said, "Su Ying, you're amazing. I didn't expect your handwriting to be so beautiful. I don't believe that you can write such beautiful handwriting with your left hand. Write with your other hand." Su Ying looked up at Fang Yan helplessly and said, "Mr. Fang, why do I feel that you're up to no good? Are you looking for a criminal suspect or a girl who wrote you a love letter?" Huang Haoren and Tangqing also looked at Fang Yan suspiciously. They felt that Fang Yan's request was really strange. Fang Yan smiled awkwardly and waved his hand. "How could that be? How could there be a criminal suspect? Who would write me a love letter? Don't make wild guesses. I just want to see if Su Ying's handwriting looks good with her left hand." Su Ying still wrote a few words with her left hand according to Fang Yan's request. It seemed that she was not used to it, and her handwriting was very poor. Fang Yan dispelled his doubts about Su Ying and said, "Forget it. I'll write with my right hand." During his sick leave, Fang Yan was not idle. He had been thinking about the changes of the heart of Tai Chi on Sword Peak. He knew that the reason why the Taiji heart could sense the outside world was because of the existence of Qi. Every object had a vital energy or vitality. As long as they breathed, had a temperature, or swayed with the wind, the heart of Taiji would be able to picture them in his mind. However, from pictograms to lines, was this a sublimation or a regression? Fang Yan crooked his finger at Fang Yingying and said, "Hero, punch me." Fang Yingying shook his head and said with a smile, "Junior martial uncle, this is not good, right? You are my most respected and beloved martial uncle. How could I hit you? If I tell you to hit him, then hit him. Stop talking nonsense. Should we ask Fang Haohen? If you don't do it, I'll hit you." Fang Yingying had no choice but to punch Fang Yan's head. Bang! Fang Yingying's body flew backward, rolling around in the yard like a meaty ball. He struggled to get up from the ground, clutching his stomach and crying, I knew it. Junior martial uncle, you are biased. Why do you always hit me but not Fang Haohen?" Fang Yan sighed softly and said, "Fang Haohen is too thin. I don't have the heart to hit him." Through this practice, Fang Yan found that his defensive ability had been strengthened again. In the past, when he was defending, he would take the initiative. When danger came, he would sense it and start to defend and counterattack. Fang Yingxiong hadn't sensed any danger yet, but he had already sent the enemy flying. Of course, it was mainly because Fang Yingxiong was too weak. If the enemy was an expert like Qinya, it would be more troublesome. However, Fang Yan was not in a hurry to verify it. His body was still very weak, and his damaged body had not been fully recovered. If he challenged the Qinya of the army, or an expert at the same level as him at this time, he would probably die. The happiest thing during this time was Xia Tian's return. When she came back, she also brought her production team, and the two little girls, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin. Jiang Qin was a little thinner than when she left, and Yuan Lin was a little fatter than when she left. Jiang Qin saw the wounds on Fang Yan's face, and tears were about to flow out. She gritted her teeth with red eyes and said, "Mr. Fang, who beat you like this? I'm going to beat him to death." Fang Yan looked at the little girl, who was waving her fists and shouting to avenge him, and said, "You don't have to do it. I beat him up even worse." Yuan Lin pinched Jiang Qin's face and said teasingly, "Mr. Fang's skills are so good. Who can beat him?" "Then I'm going to beat him up," Jiang Qin said angrily. "Why did he beat me up?" In the eyes of girls, anyone who beat Mr. Fang must not be a good person. "You can't beat him. Let me do this kind of thing," Fang Yan kindly advised. If Jiang Qin went to challenge the Qinya of the army, the enemy would probably throw her away with a flick of his sleeve. "I'll apply medicine for you," Jiang Qin said. "No need," Fang Yan refused. "Why?" "Because I just applied it half an hour ago," Fang Yan said. "Then what can I do for you?" After not seeing each other for a long time, the little girl really wanted to show off in front of Fang Yan. "Are you thirsty? I'll make you a cup of tea." "Oh, you're drinking tea." Xia Kiki sat at the side and looked at her two disciples with a smile. She looked at Fang Yan and said, "It's good to be young. You can do what you want without fear." "When you said that, you weren't that old, right?" Fang Yan said with a smile. Xia brushed the hair in front of her forehead and said, "Can you compare with them? It's so tender that water can be wrung out. If you let me wring it, I can wring out water from you," Fang Yan said. "My hands are strong." Xia was angry and said angrily, "Fang Yan, do you know how to chat?" Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin giggled at the side. Fang Yan said helplessly, "I know why you brought them here. Look at my face, it's like this. Can I be in the picture?" He ran over without saying hello in the summer, and he even brought Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin along. Naturally, he wanted to catch him off guard. She was already in Huacheng. Could Fang Yan still be cruel enough to refuse? "What I want is your kung fu. Your face can hit mosaic," Xia said. Xia's classical album hoped to have a song with Tai Chi as the background, so she chose Fang Yan to be the male lead in the story. However, if it was just a male lead, it would not be impressive enough, so she helped him find two female disciples who also played Tai Chi. The red sun rose, and the morning mist had not dispersed. On the edge of the lonely cliff, Fang Yan, dressed in white, was playing Tai Chi absent-mindedly. The wind was blowing Fang Yan's clothes up. Behind him were two young girls in white, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin. They breathed and waved with Fang Yan's breath. Fang Yan was quiet, they were quiet. Fang Yan moved, they also moved. Such a music video must be beautiful and intoxicating. Anyway, Fang Yan already felt that he was about to die. He looked at Xia and said seriously, "You must show your face." When Sister Li was washing clothes by the patio in the yard, she suddenly heard someone shouting, "Mom!" Sister Li thought that she was hallucinating. Since Jiang Qin left, she could often hear her daughter standing at the door of the small courtyard shouting, "Mom, I'm back." She shook her head and sighed, saying, "If I had known, I wouldn't have sent the child so far away. What's the point of being a star? Isn't it 100 times better to be by her side? I have to call my dear again later. I don't know if it will delay her practice." "Mom, I'm back." A soft body suddenly hugged her from behind and said happily. Auntie Li was shocked. Then, she realized that her precious daughter was really back. She quickly turned around and held Jiang Qin in her arms, wiping her tears and said, Dear, you're really back. I thought I heard wrong. Mom, I'm really back. Jiang Qin was also crying. She was still young, and this was the first time she had gone far from home. Although she had her teacher's care and Xiaxia's care, she still had to deal with a lot of things alone. Moreover, she really missed her father and mother. It's good that you're back. You won't leave this time, right? Sister Li held her daughter and looked at her with a smile. Your face is thinner, your chin is sharper, and your bones are stronger. Are you not used to the food in Yanjing? Of course it's not as good as Mom's food. Jiang Qin said flatteringly. You haven't answered Mom's question. You won't leave this time? Sister Li asked stubbornly. Why do you want to be a star? What's so good about being a star? Mom doesn't beg you to be a star. You just stay by Mom's side and live happily every day. Mom will be satisfied. If you like to study, then study. If you don't like to study, then just mess around. If you can't find a job after graduation, your dad will kill pigs, and your mom will set up a stall to make money to support you. Mom and Dad won't feel tired. Mom, Jiang Qin said embarrassedly. I came back this time to participate in the shooting. Mr. Fang and Sister Xiaxia are also here. As soon as Sister Li turned around, she saw Fang Yan and Xiaxia standing at the gate of the courtyard, looking at the mother and daughter with a smile. Sister Li quickly let go of Jiang Qin and washed her hands in the wash basin again. She wiped her hands on her clothes and quickly ran toward Xiaxia. Fang Yan was shocked. In his prediction, a fierce hand-to-hand fight was about to begin. With Sister Li's position, Xiaxia was no match at all. Auntie Li could sit there for 2 summers. Fang Yan couldn't help but take a step forward, blocking half of Xiaxia's body. Sister Li rushed to Xiaxia's side, grabbed her little hand and shook it hard. She said, Miss Xiaxia, thank you. You are the benefactor of our Jiang family. If you didn't give me this opportunity, how could I? How could I go to Yanjing to learn from such a famous teacher? Every time I call my dear, she talks about you. She says that you have helped her a lot. As a parent, I don't know what to say. Miss Xiaxia won't leave tonight, right? You must eat at home. Sister Li turned to Jiang Qin and shouted, Dear, call your dad and tell him to leave a pig's hind leg. Fang Yan, who was standing in front of Xiaji, had completely turned into transparent air. He secretly retracted the hand he had just extended and put it back into his pocket. Sometimes it was lucky that no one paid attention to you. Chapter 285. Jiang Dahai was an honest person. At night, he packed up the stall and went home with a pig's hind leg. Sister Li displayed her cooking skills to the fullest and made a table full of dishes. Xiachen repeatedly stopped her, saying that she couldn't eat that much. Auntie Li laughed and said that it didn't matter, since Teacher Fang Yan was also here, and Teacher Fang Yan had a good appetite. Fang Yan could only nod and tell Xiachen that he really could eat, so don't refuse Sister Li's kindness. When eating, Jiang Dahai took a bottle of West Phoenix old wine from the wine cabinet. Fang Yan looked at the age. This wine had been collected by him for nearly 30 years. Jiang Dahai opened the bottle cap, and the fragrance of wine filled the air. He smiled honestly and said, Everyone drink a little. So he poured a cup for Xia Chen, a cup for Fang Yan, a cup for Sister Li, and a cup for himself. Jiang Qin handed over the cup in front of him and said pitifully, Dad, this wine is so fragrant. Pour me some too. Jiang Dahai capped the bottle and said, Children are not allowed to drink. Dad, I'm not a child anymore. Jiang Qin said coquettishly. Jiang Dahai looked at his daughter and laughed. His love for her was indescribable. Jiang Dahai stood up and took the initiative to raise his cup. He said sincerely with a serious expression, Thank you, Miss Xia. Thank you, Teacher Fang Yan. I have no ability as a father. I can only kill pigs. My daughter Jiang Qin, please take care of her. After that, he raised his head and drank up the wine in the cup. Fang Yan had known Jiang Dahai for half a year. Jiang Dahai gave people the impression that he was kind, honest and a good man. He rarely spoke, and always looked at his wife and children with a smile. He had never seen him blush with anyone. It was the first time for Fang Yan to see Jiang Dahai so formal, and the first time for him to stand up and drink so boldly. For his daughter, he did what a father could do, just like millions of other parents. Xiachen also stood up, raised her neck, and drank up the wine in the cup. The smell of wine was strong, and her face immediately appeared a bright red. She looked at Jiang Dehai and said solemnly, "Mr. Jiang, your daughter Jiang Qin is a very talented child. It is precisely because of her talent that I hope that she can learn music and learn classical instruments. The path that she has taken is one that no one has taken before. Even I have the will, but I do not have the ability. So I hope she can succeed. I have high hopes for her. I believe that it won't be long before you'll be shocked by your daughter's talent and feel proud of having such a daughter. Of course, even now, she's still the most outstanding and sensible daughter you have." Jiang Dehai smiled like a Maitreya Buddha. He was also a little embarrassed as he said, "When Jiang Qin was in primary school, she once came back and told me that her classmates called her the butcher's daughter. I didn't have the ability, so I could only be a butcher. But I don't want others to see Jiang Qin call her a butcher's daughter." "That won't happen," Xiachen comforted. "People will call her teacher Jiang in the future." "Thank you." Sister Li's eyes were red. "Thank you, Miss Xia. I'll drink to you too." Jiang Dehai raised his glass to Fang Yan and said, "Fang Yan, why haven't you come to eat at home for so long?" Fang Yan smiled and said, "I'm too busy with work. If Uncle Jiang wants to find someone to drink with, you can call me anytime." The two clinked their glasses and drank the wine at the same time. Fang Yan knew that Jiang Dehai would not know about his conversation with Sister Li. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, he refused Sister Li's fruit feast and left Jiang Qin at home to accompany his parents. Fang Yan sent Xiachen back to her hotel. Winter had arrived, and the chill was getting deeper. Most of the pedestrians on the street wore sweaters or thick coats, scarves and hats to protect themselves from the cold. Winter in Yanjing was from the outside to the inside. The wind was howling, and the ice was hitting one's face. All one needed was an extra coat to resist it. Winter in Huaqing was from the inside to the outside. First, one's bones would feel cold, and then the body would feel cold. It was impossible to guard against. Therefore, Xia Chen, who was wearing a black cotton dress and brown leather boots, still felt the hostility of Huaqing towards her. The only pity was that it rarely snowed in Huaqing, no matter how cold it was. For Fang Yan, a winter without snow was an imperfect winter. He liked snow. He liked the holy and clean feeling of the whole world being covered in ice and snow. "Cold?" Fang Yan asked with a smile. "Cold." Xia Chen wrapped her woolen coat tightly and straightened the sunglasses on the bridge of her nose. She said, "Huaqing is colder than Yanjing." "I'm cold too," Fang Yan said. "Let's take a taxi back." Xia Chen looked at Fang Yan with a smile and said, "Do you really want to send me away? Do you think it's new? If other men had the chance to walk with the national goddess in the summer, they would be willing to run naked, right? If you really ran naked, I wouldn't want to. How many people would be staring at you?" Fang Yan reached out to stop a taxi and said, "You don't like me, and I've never thought of hitting on you. We don't have to pretend to be ambiguous." Fang Yan opened the door and said to the taxi driver, "Master, Hilton Jinxiao Hotel." Xiachen looked at Fang Yan and said, "Aren't we friends?" "Of course," Fang Yan said. "Friends go back to their own homes after the meal." Xiachen giggled and said, "All right, then we'll be friends." She bent down and got into the car. She waved at Fang Yan and said, "Good night. Remember what you promised me. I'll see you at Xiaxia Mountain." The first time Xiachen came into contact with Fang Yan was at Xiaxia Mountain. The first time she saw Fang Yan practicing Tai Chi was also at Xiaxia Mountain. Therefore, she stubbornly chose to shoot her music video at Xiaxia Mountain. Xiachen's team had already discussed with the person in charge of the Xiaxia Mountain Scenic Management Area. Only a fool wouldn't be able to advertise their scenic area for free. When the taxi was far away, Fang Yan turned to look at the green belt behind him and said in a cold voice, "Come out, don't be sneaky like your master." A middle-aged man walked out from behind the billboard and stood in front of Fang Yan. He said in a vicious voice, "Found them." Fang Yan looked at him and said, "You better not hate me, because you can't beat me at all. You've worked so hard to kill me, but it's easy for me to kill you." The man's fist clenched, but he quickly relaxed. Too lazy to look at the middle-aged man's pained expression, Fang Yen directly ordered, "Bring the car here." The middle-aged man waved his hand. A black Audi slowly drove in front of Fang Yen. Fang Yen opened the door and sat in the back seat. The middle-aged man also sat in the front passenger seat. Fang Yen closed his eyes and rested. The car quickly moved. It was heading towards the goal that it had set. Caesar Winery. This was a grape import and export company located in the suburbs of Huaqing. Barrels of wine were shipped from France or other European and American countries by sea. They were packaged at Caesar Winery and sold all over the country. Naturally, there was no lack of wine in the winery. Therefore, the guests of the winery could naturally enjoy it whenever and wherever they wanted. Following an extremely licentious moan, the room finally returned to silence. A long-haired woman got up from the bed, randomly picked up a man's shirt, and put it on. Her snow-white thighs were exposed in the air, exuding a seductive scent. She went to the wine cabinet and poured 2 glasses of red wine. She gave one to the man on the bed, took a sip of the other and said, "I have a bad feeling about this. Is it because I'm not good enough?" The man leaned against the headboard, revealing his thick chest and inverted triangular pectoral muscles. In some ways, he was very confident. "No, you're doing very well," the woman said. "That's the best compliment for a man," the man smiled and said. "You're also very good, the most charming woman I've ever seen. I'm starting to like you a bit." "Like? Do we deserve it?" The woman sneered. "That's true. He might live today, but he might die tomorrow. He might be alive now, but he might be dead in the next second. So what do you mean like or not like?" "It's too extravagant," the man shrugged and said self-deprecatingly. He drank the red wine in the glass and said, "What did you just say?" "Just now my ears were twitching. I had a premonition of danger." "Our lives will be in danger," the woman said. The man grinned and said, "The famous prostitute flower can also be afraid. If this gets back to the organization, I'm afraid the other flowers will laugh at us." The woman sneered and said, "Afraid? To live is to atone for sins, and to die is to rest. For such as we are, death is the ultimate happiness. What's there to be afraid of?" This is a woman's sense of crisis. "When I feel danger coming, I always have this feeling. I think we've been exposed. Everyone has faith, and as an assassin, their faith is their intuition. This intuition has saved their lives many times, allowing them to escape from death countless times." The man understood this truth, suddenly lifted the quilt, and jumped out of the bed, saying, "At least the prostitute flower hasn't made a mistake in this respect. Inform the others, we'll evacuate immediately. This place is no longer safe. I say, even if you're in a hurry to leave, shouldn't you at least put on your pants?" Fang Yen squatted by the window and looked at them. "I'm embarrassed to look at you with your buttocks naked like this." His mouth said he was embarrassed, but his eyes were really embarrassed. "This woman's body is really good, the man's body, ba ba ba. What are you looking at?" Chapter 286. Those who did great things did not bother about trifles. Even if they were in great trouble, they would not care about the little things. Four-lipped Flower and her partner, Wasp, meeting Fang Yen at this time was undoubtedly a great disaster. Assassins always took the initiative to go out and kill people. How could they let the assassination target wander into their lair? Lipped Flower looked at Fang Yen, who was squatting on the windowsill, and said with a smile, "A distinguished guest should come through the front door. It's not a gentleman's behavior to lie on the window and eavesdrop. If you have such a need, I don't mind being your husband for one night, seeing that you are handsome and good at martial arts. Is there a need to be so sneaky?" Fang Yen was really angry with her and said angrily, "Do you think I lack women? I'm not bragging, but whether it's a mature sister or a campus goddess, whether it's my first love or a wild girlfriend, as long as I crook my finger." Lipped Flower sneered and asked, "And then? You crook your finger, and they will do what?" "It's none of your business." Fang Yen said angrily. He was a little depressed because they were all gone. It had nothing to do with him. Wasp lifted the quilt to cover her naked lower body and said, "Mr. Fang, I've heard a lot about you, but I didn't expect to meet you on such an occasion. It's really awkward. What's there to be embarrassed about? What's wrong with meeting and chatting openly? Fang Yen did not feel anything wrong at all. He stared at the hand holding the quilt and said, "You'd better not move. If you move your hand, I'll break it." Wasp stopped her little movements behind the quilt and said with a smile, "I don't think you are interested in men's naked bodies. Why don't you let me get dressed, and we can sit down to drink tea and chat? Oh, if you like to drink, this place has the purest white wine in France. How about it? Do you want a glass?" Fang Yin jumped down from the windowsill. The strong smell of hormones in the room made him frown. He didn't like this smell, especially when it was made by someone else. Looking at Lipped Flower and Wasp, who were staring at him warily, he said, "Don't drink. I'm afraid you've poisoned the wine. I don't know who you are, but I know you're from an organization called the Arsenal. I've killed a lot of people from that organization, so unfortunately, you won't be the first pair. To be honest, I've always felt very wronged. I didn't provoke anyone, so why are you guys always staring at me? I went to the cafeteria for a meal and was attacked by your bombs. The first time I went back to my own company, I met your spy. When I was sparring with the Japanese god of swordsmanship at the E-Sword Peak to win glory for the country, you sent people flying over to bombard me with cannons. Do you have a conscience? Do you have any sense of propriety? Can't you have a little bit of national pride and patriotism?" Fang Yen stared at the lipstick and said, "I can see that you are a senior member of your organization, right? Tell me, who sent you to kill me? Who's the mastermind behind this?" Lipped Flower's face was full of sarcasm as he said, "Since you know we're from the Arsenal, how can you be so stupid as to think you can get the secrets you want from us? Why do you think we're the kind of people who are easy to talk to?" "I'm just asking out of habit. I didn't think you'd answer." Fang Yan's mood was very stable, and his expression was very calm. "If not, how can I stall for time?" Wasp was startled and shouted, "What did you do?" His eyes swept around, but he didn't find any enemy. The more he did this, the more nervous he became. The enemy that he couldn't see was the most terrifying. Fang Yen squinted his eyes and smiled. "I came a little early, and I'm really not interested in your bed affairs. I originally wanted to wait until you were done before coming in, but you guys didn't stop. I thought I had nothing to do, so I blew a kind of powder that my little Marshall nephew got from somewhere into the room." Seeing Wasp and Lipped Flower immediately held their breath, Fang Yen waved his hand and said, "Don't be nervous, because it's useless to be nervous. What you should have inhaled has already been inhaled. This kind of powder is silent and odorless, and it's also suppressed by the smell of your hormones. It would be strange if you could detect it. Try to raise your strength, and see if your body has any reaction." Lipped Flower and Wasp immediately secretly gathered their strength, and found that their fists were soft. If they fought with Fang Yen in this state, they would be killed with a slap. "Do you feel that you can't raise your strength?" "That's right, my little Marshall nephew told me that this powder is called bone melting powder. If the amount is enough, it can even melt bones. I was afraid that you would find something strange, so I didn't dare to use that much. So I just dispersed a little of your excess strength. After hearing what I said, shouldn't you be a little nicer to me?" Fang Yen asked with a smile. "What are you trying to do?" Wasp shouted coldly. As he spoke, Fang Yen had already lunged at him. He punched him in the chest, and when Wasp's body flew backward, he grabbed his arm and pulled him back. Fang Yen reached out and grabbed Wasp's neck and twisted it hard. Crack! Wasp's head drooped, and when Fang Yen let go, his body collapsed to the ground. Fang Yen picked up a silver light bullet from Wasp's hand, weighed it in his hand, and said to Lipped Flower, "To tell you the truth, after dealing with you a lot, I'm very afraid of this kind of thing. Why didn't you do it?" "Because I've seen you do it," Lipped Flower said. "In Chao Yan's Underground Research Institute. If I didn't have a substitute, I would have already died in your hands. Even if I wasn't poisoned, I wouldn't be a match for you. Not to mention now that my body is weak, I have no chance at all. Wasp didn't see you do it, so he died. Smart people can always live longer," Fang Yen said admiringly. "But why should I keep you alive? You're a tight-lipped person. I can't get any answers from your mouth." Fang Yen stuffed the silver bullet into Lipped Flower's mouth and said, "Tell me, what should I do with you?" Lipped Flower's face was pale, and she looked at Fang Yen in horror. Because her mouth was stuffed, Her words were a little unclear. Since you can find this place, then you must know. We're not your real target. Fang Yan nodded and said, Of course. Fang Yan chopped Lipped Flower's neck with his palm. After her body fainted on the bed, he pressed the red button on the silver bullet. He didn't have any mercy towards the members of the armory, because they were no longer people, but a group of man-eating devils. When Fang Yan closed the door of the room, there was a loud bang inside the room. Fang Yan could imagine the huge power of the silver bullet when it exploded. He had been close to it several times. Never again. At 1 o'clock in the morning, if it wasn't a shipping day, few vehicles would come to the winery at this time. However, tonight was an exception. The door of the winery was opened, and then a black Mercedes-Benz slowly drove in. The car stopped at the door of the small building, and the man in black in the passenger seat quickly got out of the car and ran over to open the rear door. A young man got out of the car. Lu Qingming looked up at the dark winery and said, Open the door. The middle-aged bodyguard nodded and took out a magnetic card from his pocket. He swiped it in front of the electronic door lock, and the door of the small building opened automatically. Lu Qingming took the lead and walked in, and the bodyguard in black followed him into the house. Clang! The door of the small building closed automatically. Turn on the light, Lu Qingming said. Pa! The light was turned on. The house was suddenly brightly lit, and it was as bright as day. Unfortunately, it wasn't opened by the bodyguard in black. He stood beside Lu Qingming and didn't even have time to do anything. There were two people sitting on the sofa in the living room. Lu Qingming never thought he would see these two people. Lu Qingming quickly turned around, and there was already a group of men in black standing behind him, blocking their way. Fang Yan looked at Lu Qingming, who was standing there with a gloomy expression, and said with a smile, I know you are very surprised as to why I am sitting here. In fact, I am also very surprised. After all, you are a person who knows how to disguise yourself. It's really not easy to catch your tail. Fang Yan patted the shoulder of the man sitting beside him and said with a smile, Thanks to your big brother. If he didn't arrange people around you to know your whereabouts and provide me with the place where you met the people from the arsenal, I'm afraid our meeting would have to be delayed for a long time. Lu Qingming stared viciously at the man sitting beside Fang Yan. He panted heavily and roared angrily like a wounded beast. Why? Why did you do this? The man reached out and took off the wolf mask on his face. His ugly face became more and more shocking under the light. He calmly looked at Lu Qingming, whose face was full of disbelief, and said, You are really too naive. How can you represent the Lu family to protect the interests of the Lu family like this? I know that you have always wanted to replace my position, and have always wanted to become one of the 4 prodigies of Huaqing. But, my good brother, do you really think you can sit in that position steadily? Jiangzililan Valley is full of people who eat people without spitting out their bones. Even I have to be very careful when dealing with them. Why are you so arrogant to think that you can play with all the heroes in the world? Chapter 287. The people who understand you the most are not only your enemies, but also the people around you. Although the willow tree's status in the family was greatly reduced due to his disfigurement, it was still very easy to arrange a confidant by Lu Qingming's side. It was also because of the willow tree's cooperation that they were able to find traces of contact between Lu Qingming and the people from the armory. It was also because of the willow tree's selfless help that Fang Yan was able to find the hiding place of the armory killers. Without the willow tree's help, Lu Qingming wouldn't have come to this place at this time. Therefore, the people who can hurt you the most are not only your enemies, but also your family. The latter is impossible to guard against. Lu Qingming didn't expect to meet the willow tree here. His emotions still couldn't completely calm down. He stared at the willow tree with a gloomy face and said, Childish? Yes, in your heart, I'm always so childish. You always look down on me and always treat me as an idiot. Am I an idiot? Of course not. How am I worse than you? How am I worse than you? If you didn't have a good father, how could you always be able to stand in front of me in every situation? Do you think you can hide your sinister side by being crazy all day long? Do you think you're humiliating yourself by playing with a few women? Lover of the masses, do Do you know that every time I hear people call you that, I sneer in my heart? Who is the real childish one? Yes, I've always wanted to replace you. I've always wanted to become one of the new four prodigies of watching. I've never hidden my thoughts. You were stabbed by Lu Chaoga, and your face was cut by Fang Yan. I'm very happy to hear these things. I know my chance has come. The Lu family can't let a loser and a disfigured person stand on the stage. If they choose again, I'm the most suitable candidate. Lu Qingming looked at the willow tree and said, If you were me, would your thoughts be different from mine? When the opportunity comes, wouldn't you reach out and grab it? Same. The willow tree said frankly, Maybe my thoughts are a bit more extreme than yours. I'll even pray at night before I sleep, praying that you will never stand up again and lie on the wheelchair like a waste for the rest of your life. I didn't cut your face, and you being cheated has nothing to do with me. Lu Qingming said unwillingly. Why do you hate me so much? I don't hate you, said the willow tree. I don't hate you at all. I still think of you as my younger brother. Little brother? The little brother that you betrayed? Lu Qingming sneered. He had waited for so long. He had purposely raised his voice. But until now, not a single member of the armory had rushed over to help. He knew that they were all dead. When he saw Fang Yan and Lu Shu sitting on the sofa in the living room, he knew that they were dead. If they weren't dead, how would Fang Yan and Lu Shu dare to sit on the sofa in the armory? The armory was an assassin company that researched gunpowder and all sorts of genetic weapons. Were they not afraid of being blasted into ashes? Previously, it was just a suspicion. Now he could finally confirm it. The willow tree stood up. He walked towards Lu Qingming step by step. His walking posture was very ugly, swaying from side to side like an old duck with an injured left leg. The middle-aged bodyguard took a step forward and stood in front of Lu Qingming. That was his only protection. The willow tree waved his hand and signaled the middle-aged bodyguard to go away. Uncle Ming, get out of the way. Lu Qingming said. If he wants to kill me, you can't stop him. The middle-aged bodyguard's face was full of unwillingness, but he could only step aside and let the willow tree pass. The willow tree stood in front of Lu Qingming and looked at his handsome facial features that were controlled by anger. He smiled and said, From childhood to adulthood, there are so many brothers in the family, and the two of us have the best relationship. To be honest, I don't like you, and you just said that you hate me very much. However, we are the two best people in the Lu family. At least we all think so. Therefore, we must live together intimately, so that the elders have enough confidence in us. How can a person who can't even unite his brothers and family become the heir of the family? I have always thought that I am the heir of the Lu family. At least others also think so. Therefore, I want to maintain the demeanor of an heir. And I want to unite all the forces around me that can be united. However, when I found out that you are doing the same thing as me, I began to dislike you from the bottom of my heart. Now, do you know why I said that you are stupid? Because you exposed your ambition too early. If you were in your position, what should you do? You should be hostile to me. You should be my enemy everywhere. And at the right time, you should stab me with a knife. This is what you should do. This is the attitude that an unwilling competitor should have. I know that there are broad-minded people in this world, but I also know that that person is definitely not you. I don't hate you. The willow tree looked at Lu Qingming and said, I don't have any reason to hate you, because you are the same as me, a poor climber. When I climbed halfway up the mountain, I accidentally fell down. Although it wasn't to the extent of being smashed to pieces, I was riddled with scars. You are my heir. You climbed up the road that I walked, but you were dragged down by me who was unwilling. You are also a poor person. Why should I hate you? If you don't hate me, why would you join hands with Fang Yan to deal with me? If you don't hate me, why would you betray me like this? Lu Qingming pointed at Fang Yan, who was sitting on the sofa, and said, Did you forget how he hurt you? Did you forget how he humiliated you? He scratched your face, broke your legs, threw you down the stairs. If it wasn't hatred, then what reason would make you join hands with him to deal with me? Did you forget what I said just now? Both of us are climbers, but the top of the mountain can only accommodate one person. Therefore, we both have to do everything possible to kick our opponents down the mountain. Just like how you secretly ordered the people in the arsenal to assassinate Fang Yan, but deliberately led the clues to me. Don't you also hope that Fang Yan will treat me as his mortal enemy, and then the two of us will fight, and I will be completely eliminated by him? That way, no one will stand in front of you anymore, right? Yes, you did a good job, and Fang Yan did put the focus of suspicion on me. However, have you ever thought that there is a fatal flaw in your plan? That flaw is me. You want to tell everyone that this matter was done by me, and Fang Yan also suspects that I did it, but I know that I didn't do it. I have nothing to do with the arsenal. In this way, you will easily be exposed. Moreover, you thought that even if I guessed the truth, there is nothing I can do, because Fang Yan and I are mortal enemies. No matter what, I will not run to Fang Yan and tell him that this matter wasn't done by me. Lu Qingming sneered and said, in the end, I underestimated your shamelessness and cowardice. I really didn't think that you would run to cooperate with Fang Yan. Anyone who has suffered such humiliation and injury would not do such a thing in the face of their enemy, right? So this is where you are inferior to me. Lu Shu said. A real man knows when to yield and when to stand tall. Yesterday's enemy becomes today's friend. This is something that happens every day in the business world. Why do you find it hard to understand? What I find hard to understand is that you would cooperate with a person like Fang Yan. Lu Qingming said. Fang Yan is as cunning as a wolf dog. Aren't you afraid that he will dig a hole to bury you? You worked hard, but it was all for naught. Doesn't it sound very sad? Why can't I cooperate with a person like Fang Yan? Lu Shu asked with a smile. If I cooperate with Fang Yan, I can get what I want. We are mortal enemies, but we can advance and retreat together. If I cooperate with him, he will help me regain the position of the Lu family's successor. If I cooperate with you, will you give this position to me? Obviously, this is impossible, because only the two of us are the most direct competitors. So, it will be very difficult for me to leave the winery today. Lu Qingming asked aloud, but his eyes were looking at Fang Yan, who was sitting on the sofa and listening to the conversation between the two brothers with a smile. He knew that the decision-maker here today was that man. His brother Lu Shu was only a receptionist. Fang Yan picked up a cotton swab from the table and picked his ear, then said, Don't ask me about this kind of thing. I'm not interested in other people's family business. But I'm a narrow-minded person. No matter who hurts me, they won't be able to laugh it off. Lu Shu reached out his hand, lightly patted Lu Qingming's shoulder, then said, You've led the Lu family to the wrong path. You even naively thought that you've allied with the Jiang family and the Gu family. Don't you know that you have to listen to the opposite of what they say? They call you brother on the table, then turn around and stomp you to the ground. Their words can't be trusted. They aren't good people. I need a chance. The Lu family also needs to make a new choice. All sacrifices are worth it. Lu Shu stretched out his arms and embraced Lu Qingming. He gently patted Lu Qingming's shoulder and said, Thank you, my good brother. Lu Shu's actions were very kind, and his voice was very gentle. It was like an older brother comforting his injured little brother. Their feelings were so sincere, their hug was so touching. No matter who saw them, they would think that this was a pair of brothers who had a very good relationship. Lu Qingming's head softly rested on Lu Shu's shoulder. His eyes were wide open, and blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth. He had a lot of unwillingness, but even more than that, he felt pain in his heart. There was a shining knife stuck in his chest. Chapter 288. There are many dark and damp corners in this world. If your heart is in full bloom, the darkness will always exist in places you can't see. Lu Qingming died. He died in the hands of his brother. That sharp knife stopped in a very good position, piercing his heart. Lu Qingming's body was lying on the shoulder of the willow tree, his face full of unwillingness and disbelief. But who was willing to listen to his grievances and complaints? You madman, you can even kill your own brother. Uncle Ming pointed at the willow tree and roared. He was an elder of the Lu family, responsible for protecting Lu Qingming for many years. It wasn't that he hadn't heard of brothers being castrated, but when he saw it with his own eyes, he still found it hard to accept. The willow tree expressionlessly looked at Uncle Ming, his eyes full of sadness. Uncle Ming, you don't understand. When a person has to force himself betray morality and his own heart, that kind of state of mind really makes people uncomfortable. He waved his hand, and a man in black behind him rushed straight towards Uncle Ming. Uncle Ming didn't have time to say another word, and he was already fighting with the man in black. The willow tree picked up Lu Qingming and walked step by step towards the sofa. He put Lu Qingming's body, or rather corpse, on the sofa, and then sat next to Fang Yan. Fang Yan sat on the far left, and Lu Qingming sat on the far right. He sat in the middle of the two. This way, from a distance, it looked like three men sitting side by side, watching a wonderful play in the living room. Fang Yan glanced at Lu Qingming and helplessly said, "Don't be like this, okay? You're making me very uncomfortable. You killed your cousin, which proves the fact that you're a scumbag and a beast. Now that he's dead, what's the meaning of carrying him to the sofa? This can't atone for your sins, and it also adds another charge of being a hypocrite. At least that's what I think in my heart. I'm a bad person, but not a beast. Bad people also feel guilty. It's just that you don't want to believe it." The willow tree said. He felt guilty, so he gave Lu Qingming the least amount of respect. When he was sitting, he didn't allow Lu Qingming to lie on the ground. At any time, he could be trampled by the two guys who were fighting. So what if I feel guilty, saying sorry while stabbing me? If I meet such a bad guy, I'll just kill him with one slap. Fang Yan said coldly. He turned to look at the willow tree and smiled amiably again, saying, "Of course, you are an exception." Who was Lu Qingming? He was the person in charge of an evil organization like the Arsenal. He had repeatedly dispatched killers to assassinate innocent people and harm teachers. Do you have any idea what you just did? You're the hero of the people, getting rid of evil for the people. At least, you're my hero. Fang Yan patted Lu Shu's shoulder and said, "Not everyone can put righteousness before family. People who could do this were definitely not good people. My condolences." The willow tree said nothing. He knew that Fang Yan was mocking him, and he also knew that when he stabbed his brother to death, Fang Yan's guard against him immediately rose by hundreds or even thousands of levels. He even knew that if he didn't do it, Fang Yan would personally kill Lu Qingming. Since Fang Yan knew that he was colluding with the Arsenal, he would certainly not let him walk out of this winery alive. However, this matter had to be done by him. Fang Yan would also force him to do it. This was a bargaining chip for cooperation. If he wanted to gain Fang Yan's trust and make them close, he had to do this. There was no other candidate, only his brother. Not everyone's sacrifice was meaningful, and not everyone was qualified to sacrifice for a great ideal and goal. Most people died in vain. Fang Yan was a considerate man. He didn't entangle with Lu Shu on this issue. That would be like cutting the flesh on someone else's chest, and then sprinkling salt. He looked at the man in black in the middle of the living room and said, "Is he Chen Pu's disciple?" Chen Pu was Lu Shu's cart pusher. In order to protect Lu Shu at the Blue Mountain Club, his bones were crushed by Fang Yan. He never thought that that night would be an opportunity. It was an opportunity for his master and Fang Yan to come into contact. It was unknown whether it was a hint from a sentence or a look, but the two of them actually came together and teamed up to plot against Lu Qingming, who was insufferably arrogant at the Blue Mountain Club at that time. It wasn't easy for fools to survive in this world. He's called Wang Dong. Chen Pu was destroyed, so I recommended him to work by my side. He knows that master was destroyed by you, so he always wanted to find you for revenge. Lu Shu said, "I don't have anyone I can use right now. Leave him to me." Fang Yan nodded with a smile and said, "I can see the hatred in his eyes. However, I won't kill him just because he looked at me angrily. I can't do such a thing. Of course, you'd better greet him. Don't think about plotting against me. I only need to find out about this once, and I'll have enough reasons to get rid of him. He's not stupid. He should know what to choose." Lu Shu said, "If he wants to die, then it's fine if we don't cherish him." Bang! Wang Dong punched Uncle Ming's chest. When Uncle Ming's lower body was unstable, and he was pushed back, Wang Dong pounced on him and wrapped his arms around his neck. Crack! Uncle Ming's body softly fell to the ground, and he didn't move anymore. Lu Qingming was dead, and Uncle Ming was also dead. There was no evidence in this matter, so Lu Shu had enough space to act. Fang Yan stood up and said, "What a sin! My body is stained with so much killing intent. I need to go back and take a bath." The door opened and closed, and Fang Yan's figure quickly disappeared. Wang Dong walked to Lu Shu's side and said unhappily, "You're letting him go just like that? So what?" Lu Shu raised his head and asked, "Keep him here? He knows too many of our secrets. I'm afraid he'll betray young master." "I also want to keep him here." Lu Shu sighed softly. "Even if all of your corpses were piled in front of him, he still wouldn't stay. You don't know how terrifying he is." Lu Shu put on the wolf mask on the sofa and said in a low voice, "I know. Grandma was cooking in the kitchen. Grandma went to the market to buy hairy crabs and all kinds of precious seafood because her grandson and Lu Chaoga had come. Of course, it was mainly because of Lu Chaoga. Lu Chaoga didn't have the image of a headmistress or a strong woman with billions of assets. She wore an apron around her neck and rolled up her sleeves to personally prepare the ingredients." Fang Yan was called to the study by Grandpa. Whenever Grandpa called Fang Yan to the study for a talk, it wouldn't be anything good. Therefore, Fang Yan was already mentally prepared. As expected, Grandpa Qin Wang scolded him as soon as he entered the room. "What have you been doing recently? You're not teaching properly, and you're always on leave. What kind of behavior is this? This is a serious dereliction of duty. Do you know how many days of leave you've taken this semester? Do you know how many days of classes you've had in a month? When I first introduced you to Rosefinch to teach, it wasn't for you to be lazy and slack off. A teacher should be with his students and pass on his knowledge to them. The students don't see you all day. How can they be influenced by you? How can they learn from you? If I were still the headmaster of Rosefinch, I would have fired an incompetent teacher like you long ago. And what's with the bruises on your face? You're a good school teacher and a high-level intellectual. Why do you walk around the campus with a bruised face all day? Do you know what a bad example your behavior is giving to the students? Even a teacher gets into a fight with someone. Grandpa, I accidentally bumped. Bumped? How did you end up like this? The scratches on your face were also caused by the collision? Show me one on the spot. If you can do it, I'll go against my conscience and believe your nonsense." Qin Wang was furious. He wanted to press this kid to the ground and smash his head with the inkstone on the table. A good high school teacher going out to fight and kill all day. How uncivilized is that? Fang Yan stood there awkwardly. He tried his best to squeeze out a smile and said, "Grandpa, don't be angry. I just said a joke to liven up the atmosphere. The bruises on my face are from someone beating me up, but I didn't lose out. I still beat him in the end." Seeing that Qin Wang was about to explode again, Fang Yan hurriedly explained, "The one who challenged me was an East Asian. He's a famous East Asian swordsman. People call him the East Asian sword god. Civil officials aren't greedy, and military generals don't care about death. He can definitely win the respect of all the countries in the world. I like literature, so I became a teacher and impart my knowledge to others. I practice martial arts, so I need to defend against foreign enemies and accept challenges. Grandpa said that I lack spirit last time. I've seriously thought about this problem, and I also feel that I lack spirit. A man can't stand without a soul. My words are my promise, and my soul is that I will never back down. I hope I can live, and there's a high chance that I will die. However, as long as I have a breath left in me, I will never let them take a step forward or win a battle. I want to smash their arrogance. I want to smash their confidence and ambition. I want to break their faces and break their teeth, so that they can't be a wolf that eats meat, but a dog that eats shit. This is my ideal, this is my spirit." Lu Gong was stunned on the spot. He stared at his young grandson for a long time, before he finally reached out and patted him on the shoulder. He said, "Your words are crude, but your logic is not." Chapter 289. Seeing Lu Gong take Fang Yan upstairs, her grandmother poked Lu Chaoga, who was processing the crabs, and said in a low voice, "Chaoga, go upstairs and have a look." Lu Chaoga looked at her grandmother in confusion and asked, "Grandma, what should I look at?" Her grandmother looked worried and said angrily, The old man has been working in education all his life. He's retired for so many years, but he still can't change his bad habit of scolding people. He had always hoped that Fang Yan could be engaged in education or academic research. In the end, Fang Yan wholeheartedly went to learn Tai Chi from the Fang family. This matter had almost become a sore point for the old man. Several times when he went to bed at night, he sighed and said that a good seedling had been ruined. Yesterday, Headmaster Zhang Xiaofeng came to visit, and the old man asked about Fang Yan's work. Headmaster Zhang said that Fang Yan hadn't been in good health recently, and had asked for sick leave. The old man was scared, and was going to take me to see Fang Yan. But today, I saw the boy's face full of injuries. What kind of illness could it be? He must have had a fight with someone again. The old man was so angry that he dragged Fang Yan upstairs to the study to teach him a lesson. The old lady glanced at the second floor and said, "The old man has a habit of scolding people in the study. A few years ago, he scolded Fang Yan so much that he didn't dare to step through our door. Go and have a look. Tell them to go downstairs for dinner." Even if the old man was angry, he could only hold it in when he saw you. He praised you a lot at home, saying that you were the best educator he had ever seen. In the end, he also went into business. Lu Chaoga really couldn't imagine how Fang Yan looked when he was scolded. With his sharp tongue, who could take advantage of him? However, only an unyielding elder like Lu Gong could make him respect and fear him, right? Lu Chaoga took off her apron and walked upstairs quickly. Since her grandmother was worried, she would go over to help. Before Lu Chaoga could reach the door of the study, she heard Fang Yan's impassioned voice. "Who do they think they are? A sword god from a few small islands dares to come to our great country of Huaxia to challenge us? To be honest, if it weren't for the fact that he was older than me, I wouldn't have fought him at all. It would be embarrassing. If I go, it would be a waste of my talents. If I send Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan, they would be more than enough to defeat him. They have the god of swords, we have the god of despicable. It's a perfect match. But I didn't do that. Why? I have to respect the old and cherish the young. It's all thanks to Grandpa's good education. Otherwise, how could he have the chance to spar with me?" Lu Gong's face darkened again. He said, "I saw that you said a few good words just now, but after a while you're talking nonsense. I have done some research on the Japanese. They are extremely selfish and proud, but they are also very hardworking. If the person who challenged you didn't have any ability, how could he become the sword god that they worship? He's number one in the Japanese, but in our country he's nothing," Fang Yan said stubbornly. Anyway, he didn't have any friendship with the Chiba army, so he didn't have any psychological burden to belittle him. Think about it, if he's really that powerful, why can't he beat me? Lu Gong thought about it seriously and said, "Whether it's learning or practicing martial arts, you can't be arrogant and complacent. I've never seen anyone who could reach the end of learning Hai Wuya." "Grandpa, you're right. That's what I'm thinking," Fang Yan quickly agreed. "After coming back this time, I also realized that I'm not good enough. Although I've been resting at home on sick leave for the past few days, I've never forgotten to read. I've read all the Chinese papers for the past few years. This year's final exam, Class 9 should be able to get a good result." "That's because the children of Class 9 are working hard," Lu Gong said. He looked at the scars on Fang Yan's face and said with concern, "Work isn't in a hurry. You should rest when it's time for you to rest. Strike a balance between work and rest." "I can't rest without being with the students," Fang Yan said with a sigh. Lu Xiaoga looked at this warm and affectionate scene, and felt as if his heart was in a mess. Wasn't grandmother's worry too unnecessary? Lu Gong saw Lu Chaoga standing at the door, and showed a rare smile on his face. "Chaoga, what's up?" "Grandma asked me to invite you downstairs for dinner," Lu Chaoga said. Lu Gong nodded and said, "I'll go downstairs now." After that he walked out of the study first. Fang Yan walked to Lu Chaoga's side and asked with a smile, "Grandma is worried that I'll be scolded by Grandpa, right?" "Seems like Grandma still doesn't know you well enough," Lu Chaoga said. "The more you go through, the more experience you have," Fang Yan said with a smile. Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yan and said, "I've accepted Lawn Mountain Valley's conditions." "That's your problem," Fang Yan said. He rarely got involved in Chao Yan's matters, but Fang Yan was the one who initiated the cooperation with Lan Mountain Valley. With Lu Shu as a spy and Lan Mountain Valley as a pawn, if the other families wanted to take advantage of them, they would have to go through these two hurdles first. That's Chao Yan's problem, Lu Chaoga said. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, "Let's go downstairs for dinner." Dinner isn't ready yet. Zhangxia Mountain, the mountain where the clouds fall. In winter, Zhangxia Mountain was a bit lonely. The mountain wind howled and the dried leaves fluttered, but it also had a different feeling to it. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were a bit excited to be back at Zhangxia Mountain. Jiang Qin pointed at a cliff and said, "Mr. Fang saved us from there. If it weren't for Mr. Fang, those bad guys would definitely still be chasing us. I wonder what happened to them in the end." "Bad guys naturally have to be punished," Zhang Dekai said with a smile. He was the righteous police officer who helped deal with the 3 scammers last time. This summer, he brought a crew to Zhangxia Mountain to film, so he led the team to guard the place. "We won't let them off just because they're of different nationalities." Jiang Qin smiled sweetly and said, "Thank you, Uncle Zhang." Zhang Dekai waved his hand and said, "This is what we should do." The music video director was called Song Ge, a very influential figure in the film industry. He had filmed for many big names both at home and abroad. Everyone respectfully called him Brother Song. Brother Song found it hard to understand the importance Xia Xia placed on Fang Yan. If the top star in the country wanted to find a Tai Chi master to film a music video, shouldn't those Tai Chi masters rush up crying and hugging his thighs? If they could get even a little bit of a relationship with Xia Xia, wouldn't they be famous? Once they entered the scene, they wouldn't have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of their lives. Everyone knew this very well. In order to take care of this Fang Yan, Xia Xia actually brought the whole group to Huaqing to film. Didn't she know that the trip, food, and accommodation for such a large group of people would require a lot of money? Brother Song's main dissatisfaction with Fang Yan was that he didn't receive enough respect. For a famous director like him, the actors he needed should have traveled all the way to meet him. How could he let him move to Huaqing? He thought that Fang Yan was more famous than him, which made him feel that they didn't treat him as a famous person in Xia Xia. The staff were setting the scene. Brother Song pulled Fang Yan aside and told him about the things he needed to pay attention to during the shooting. He said, "You have no shooting experience before, and you don't know any shooting techniques. So I don't expect you to cater to my camera. Just do what you are most familiar with. The focus of this music video is on you. You just need to do Tai Chi well and show the essence of our Tai Chi culture. Do you understand? Don't be flashy, just show the essence. You have to make people feel cool, gorgeous, and beautiful at first glance." Fang Yan patiently waited for him to finish and said, "Director Song, the essence of Tai Chi is not cool and gorgeous, but the deep meaning it shows when yin and yang blend. It is in line with the way of heaven, the way of humanity, and the way of nature. From these simple movements, you can get great relief and freedom." Brother Song was angry and said angrily, "Are you the director or am I the director? Do you understand the language of the camera? Do you know what it means to present in front of the camera? As long as I point the camera at you, you have to give me the best posture and the most attractive movements. You stand there like a mummy. Who wants to look at you?" Fang Yan smiled bitterly and said, "Director Song, you still have some misunderstandings about Tai Chi. Song Ge waved her hand impatiently and said, "It's not that I have a misunderstanding about Tai Chi, it's that you don't understand our director and the camera at all. Okay, you don't have to say anymore." Song Ge walked up to Xia Ji, who was putting on makeup, and said, "Xia Ji, I want to discuss something with you. This actor is not good. I don't think he is suitable to be the male lead of our music video. I know you love this song, and I also know how important this music video is to you. In any case, we can't let this kind of idiot ruin all our efforts." Xia Ji waved his hand and signaled the makeup artist to stop for a while. He looked at Song Ge with a gentle and serious look and said with a smile, "I think he is very intelligent and has a very deep understanding of Tai Chi teacher Song. Can't you let him try it? I think that when you really see him play Tai Chi, You will have a new understanding of him. Summer, this is your work, and it is also my work. I hope there are no flaws in our work. Don't you want a Tai Chi master? Leave this matter to me. I will make a call, and there will be dozens of Tai Chi masters for us to use. Song-gu said stubbornly. We have to change this person. Xiaji looked at Song-gu and said, Okay, then let's change people. Song-gu was overjoyed and said, Xiaji, you agree? I will tell him to get out of here and call someone. Don't think that we can only eat pigs with hair after Butcher Zhang died. Change the director, Xiaji said to the assistant beside him. Chapter 290. The smile on Song-ji's face froze before he could retract it. Replacement? It's not the actors but the director? Song-gu was about to cry. He knew that his feeling was right. They didn't treat him as a big shot at all. They didn't respect him. If they cared a little about his feelings, they would follow his words and replace that *T Tai Chi master. A big shot should have a big shot's temper. He wanted to throw out some harsh words and leave. But he suddenly remembered that there were all kinds of hidden rumors about Summer's identity in the circle. He couldn't say those harsh words no matter what. What was worse was that he couldn't flick the sleeves of his tight leather clothes. No one could stay if he wanted to, and he didn't dare to leave if he wanted to. He stood there in a dilemma, his face extremely embarrassed. What was the relationship between this gigolo and Summer? She hadn't seen Summer get close to any man for so many years. The only one who was close to her, Feng Yuancheng, seemed to be very depressed recently. Did this gigolo catch her eye? Song-gu was a little regretful. Women were irrational when they fell in love. Why should she make things difficult for her lover? Summer's assistant was Zhang Wei. Because he had a good relationship with Feng Yuancheng, he thought that Feng Yuancheng would be able to win the beauty in the end. He didn't expect to bet on the wrong treasure. Feng Yuancheng was kicked thousands of miles away by Summer. He was worried that his relationship with Summer would become estranged, so he had been trying to make up for it recently. It was not auspicious to change the director on the spot. When he heard that Summer wanted to change the director on the spot, he wanted to persuade her, but he was worried that it would make her angry. Because he had been with Summer for many years, he knew that as long as Summer decided on something, few people could change it. He hesitated, but Fang Yen tried to persuade him. It's not that serious. I think Director Song still has some misunderstandings about me and Tai Chi. If I fight on the spot for him to see, he will have a new understanding of us. If it doesn't work, it won't be too late to change the director at that time. Fang Yen spoke, and Zhang Wei quickly echoed, Mr. Fang is right. Sensei Song-gu looks at Taiji from the perspective of the camera, while Sensei Fang looks at the problem from the perspective of the depth of Taiji. It's just that everyone's focus is different. We just need to find a common point, which is to be able to show the self-restraint of Taiji, and also be able to look good on the camera. Isn't this what we need? Xia Xia looked at Song-gu with a smile on his face and asked, Teacher Song, what do you say? Then let him try, Song-gu said. He thought to himself that they still needed him. It was easy to find actors, but not so easy to find a good director. Seeing is believing. I hope he doesn't disappoint. Xia Xia looked at Fang Yen and said, You go through it first and let the two little girls remember the routine. No problem, Fang Yen said. Fang Yen walked to the edge of the cliff and stood in the form of a plum blossom stake. As for the staff behind him who asked in a low voice why they had to walk to the edge of the cliff to play Tai Chi, no one was willing to answer such a stupid question, because no one except Fang Yen knew the answer to this question. Fang Yen took a deep breath, and then gently tapped the tip of his right foot. His movement was gentle and comfortable like an arc. Every movement of his was careful, as if he was afraid that his palm would scatter the wind, and the soles of his feet would hurt the grass. However, as time went by, his movements gradually accelerated. This kind of acceleration was gradual, and would not make you feel abrupt or unnatural. His body was like an arc, like an iron bow, or like a curved willow. He was like a white ape that absorbed the chi of heaven and earth, like insects, fish, flowers, and plants. He was one with everything in the world. Every time he turned around, his body seemed to fall into the abyss. This made everyone enjoy this extreme beauty with their hearts in their throats. However, Their worries were superfluous, because no matter how Fang Yin drew a circle or turned around, he stood there as steady as a 1,000-year-old pine tree. Not the slightest bit off, not the slightest bit off. The setting sun was like an egg yolk, revealing a little shy face in the thick white fog. Seeing the commotion over here, a small bird with colorful feathers also flew over and peeked its head out to observe. It was still chirping, looking adorable and cheerful. Fang Yin jumped, and the bird was caught in the palm of his hand. He stretched out his arms and imitated the bird's undulating wings. He knew that as long as he used this stunt, there would be female fans at the scene fainting. The bird stood in the palm of his hand. The bird accumulated strength, and Fang Yin released it. The bird lost its strength, and Fang Yin used the power of Tai Chi to lift it up. The bird became nervous, and its chirping became louder. However, when it found that it was not in any danger, and the game was fun, it began to enjoy it. When Fang Yin released his strength, it jumped with all its might. When Fang Yin gathered his strength, it landed steadily. It even turned around and chirped at Fang Yin, telling him to hurry up, "You bastard." The man and the bird were having a lot of fun. On the distant mountain ridge, a monk and a Taoist smiled as they evaluated each other. "What do you think of this child?" the old monk asked. Angry because of the momentum. His momentum is like a rainbow. This child actually has the momentum of indistinguishable yin and yang, the middle-aged Taoist said with an expression of admiration. The universe goes from Wuji to Tai Chi, the process of all things being born. With all things being, there is the sky above our heads and the earth below our feet. The Tao of the world uses the two energies of yin and yang to create all things. Heaven and earth, the sun and moon, thunder and lightning, wind and rain, the four seasons, as well as male and female, firm and soft, movement and stillness, all things being born from yin and yang. The old monk's expression was solemn. However, everyone knows that it is precisely because all things have yin and yang. That's why Tai Chi emphasizes the fusion of yin and yang. Extreme yin gives birth to yang. Extreme yang gives birth to yin. This child is amazing. At such a young age, he can see mountains as mountains and water as water. Even this bird sees him as one of its kind. The heart of Tai Chi has truly become one with all things. The middle-aged Taoist nodded and said, "Then should we teach him the Tai Chi diagram?" The old monk shook his head and said, "The Tai Chi diagram is very important. Not only is it a treasure of your Taoism, but it also protects our Hua Xia's dragon soul. Be careful, be cautious. Other than the foundation of martial arts, the quality of one's temperament is even more important." Looking at his appearance and behavior, this child doesn't seem to be an evil person. Furthermore, how could someone who possesses the heart of Tai Chi be bad? Let's see. Let's see. Fang Yan's body rose into the air again. He personally sent the bird into the sky. Then, he lightly patted the bird's head, indicating that it could leave. When Fang Yan landed, the bird actually swooped down again and stood on his shoulder, unwilling to leave. It chirped at Fang Yan's face, as if it wanted to talk to him. Everyone on the scene was dumbfounded. Jiang Qin was so excited that he couldn't control himself. He grabbed Yuan Lin's hand and said, "Yuan Lin, did you see that? Did you see that? Mr. Fang is really amazing." Yuan Lin didn't feel any pain. Her eyes were shining as she stared at Fang Yan and said, "That bird is so cute." Summer was also intoxicated for a moment, but she quickly regained her sobriety. She was engaged in art, so she had no resistance to beautiful things. When Fang Yan played with the bird, it really made people's hearts tremble. It was so beautiful. "That's amazing. This person's Tai Chi is so beautiful. Oh my God, I've never seen anyone play Tai Chi like that. Is this really Tai Chi? He jumped so high just now. Is there a steel wire hanging on his body? I really want to become that bird, then I can play with him." When the staff saw this incredible scene, they all became Fang Yan's die-hard fans. The Tai Chi that Fang Yan presented was the Tai Chi that they had never seen before. It was the most beautiful and ideal Tai Chi in their minds. Sangge was also stunned. "Master, this was a real Tai Chi master. How could there be such a Tai Chi? How could there be such a cool Tai Chi?" No, this could no longer be described as cool, but How could a cultured person be so pretentious? You clearly knew that he was pretending, but you still felt that this guy was really awesome. Song-gu kicked the leg of the cameraman next to her and shouted, "Did you take a picture? Did you take a picture just now?" The cameraman didn't have time to take off the cover of the camera lens. He said aggrievedly, "Director, didn't you say to take a look first? Look my ass. Look my ass." Song-gu kicked the cameraman's leg again and again. "Why aren't you afraid? Why aren't you afraid? What else do you want to shoot if not such a scene? I'm so angry, you idiots." Song-gu ran in front of Xiaji and said with a flushed face, "Xiaji, let's not change the person. It's him, it's him. He's a master. He can definitely give us the feeling we want. Yes, it's him. No one else can do it." "Did I pass?" Fang Yan asked with a smile. "Yes," Song-gu said. "You don't want to change the person?" Fang Yan asked again. "No." Song-gu waved her hand and said, "Well, Brother Fang, I was a little biased against you just now. Don't be angry. That thing is over. Let's not take it to heart. What do you think? I'm not a stingy man. How can I take such a small thing to heart?" Fang Yan said. "That's great. Let's start?" "Start what?" Fang Yan asked. He turned to look at Xiaji and said, "My Tai Chi has been recognized by everyone. Now we can change the director." Song-gu sat on the ground, so angry that her whole body was trembling. In the forest behind the crew, the middle-aged Taoist priest said to the old monk with an embarrassed face, "Let's watch again, let's watch again." The old monk laughed. Chapter 291. You insult me once and then apologize to me. It's not fair at all. You insult me once and I'll insult you once. That's fair. Teacher Fang Huohua values fairness the most. Song-gu got up from the ground, stared at Fang Yan fiercely and said, "Do you want to play with me? Isn't your entertainment circle too dark?" Fang Yan said angrily, "You dare to make such a rude request to me in public?" Fang Yan looked at Xiaji with a strange look as if saying, "The noble circle is really messy." Xiaji looked at Song-gu and said, "Teacher Song, is there no problem in confirming the candidate?" "No problem." Song-gu dared to be ruthless to Fang Yan, but did not dare to say a harsh word to Xiaji. He and Fang Yan did not have a subordinate relationship. Fang Yan was a school teacher, and it would not affect his life. He said a harsh word to Xiaji, and Xiaji was only angry for a while. However, if Xiaji said a harsh word to him, he would have bad luck for the rest of his life, and he was afraid that his career would end early. "Then be more attentive," Xiaji said. "Let go of some unnecessary prejudice, and you will find that Teacher Fang Yan is a very easy person to get along with." "I will." Song-gu gritted her teeth and said. She thought, "Is this guy really an easy person to get along with? He went around in such a big circle just to slap you in the face. How can such a narrow-minded person be called easy to get along with?" Song-gu walked in front of Fang Yan, took the initiative to reach out and said, "Mr. Fang, please give me a lot of advice." "You're welcome." Fang Yan held Song Ji's hand and said, "I don't understand camera language, so I have to trouble Director Song to make me look as handsome as possible. Mr. Fang is an idol. Director Song is flattering me. Ha ha ha, I'm quite popular with students at school." Xiaji and many staff members looked at them with black lines on their faces. Everyone discussed for a while. Song-gu once again explained some shooting details, and the MV shooting officially began. The shooting this time was mainly divided into two parts. The first part was Fang Yan practicing Tai Chi alone, to show the rigidity of Tai Chi. The other part was Xia Xia bringing Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, the two little beauties, to perform the softness of Tai Chi in black Tai Chi clothes. Two different scenes, maybe even two different space-time. Fang Yan's white clothes fluttered in the wind. He looked like an ancient Taiji youth. The scene of Tai Chi with Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin would constantly switch, but it was a modern Tai Chi then. Hardness and gentleness complemented each other, and the four of them began to fuse. Fang Yan stood at the edge of the cliff, the dragon head. Xia Xia, Jiang Qin, and Yuan Lin followed behind him and did the same thing. Their movements were neat, and the scene was beautiful. Because it was already late when the crew went up the mountain, They first shot some scenes of Fang Yan practicing Tai Chi at the edge of the cliff in the mountain breeze and white fog. Then, using the same scene, Xia Xia took Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin up, and also did a round of Tai Chi. Xia Xia originally had a good foundation in Tai Chi, but it didn't have any actual combat effect. It was only for strengthening the body. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were still very unfamiliar with Tai Chi. They just felt that Fang Yan was handsome and good-looking. In the past 2 days, Fang Yan gave them some simple training. They only needed to follow behind Xia Xia or Fang Yan. Simply put, the two of them were two little flower vases in the MV. Everyone only needed to think that the two of them were good-looking. In the evening, the crew members settled in the Xia Hotel, which was the only quasi-5-star hotel on Xia Mountain. Last time, Fang Yan brought his students up the mountain for the night, but he didn't bring them to stay in such a hotel. Some students had strong self-esteem, so he had to carefully protect them. After dinner, Fang Yan and Xia Xia drank tea and chatted in the Tingfeng tea house of the hotel. The Xia Hotel was built against the mountain, and the Tingfeng tea house was on the edge of the cliff. Sitting in the tea house and drinking tea, the dark Grand Canyon came into view. In autumn, the valley was full of red maple leaves, which made people feel relaxed and happy. But in winter, when there were no stars or moon in the sky, only the whistling of the wind could be heard. That was how the Tingfeng tea house got its name. Fang Yan was busy making tea. The golden pu'er tea soup was very tempting. He said, "Do you want to replace Song Ge?" Xia Xia's eyes stayed on the hand that Fang Yan was using to make tea. He felt that the posture of Fang Yan making tea was very beautiful and skillful. She liked Huaxia culture in tea. But no matter how expensive the tea house was, how famous the tea made by the tea artist, she always felt that there was a lack of taste. Immortal taste. Yes, it was immortal taste. Pure heart and few desires, neither fast nor slow. No flattery, no filth. This was immortal taste. Unfortunately, few people could do it. I knew Song Ge 10 years ago, and all my music videos were made by him. At that time, he was just a very talented young man. Xia Xia explained softly. Later on, as his fame grew, people's nature also changed. Now he is the kind of person I don't like the most. If I don't stand up for you, he will insist on replacing you, and then use his own people. Xia Xia looked at Fang Yan and said, "I can tolerate people around me making some small mistakes in the field of life, but I will never allow them to criticize my work. This is my work." He wanted to try to control you, so he used me as an experiment. In the end, you slapped him back. Fang Yan said with a smile, "This slap is fierce enough." "I don't slap people," Xia Xia said. "If he still doesn't know how to restrain himself, then cut off his hands and feet. Isn't this too domineering?" Fang Yan's eyes widened. A scene appeared in his mind. Xia Xia, with disheveled hair, was holding a kitchen knife and chopping off Song Ji's hands and feet. Then he stood there and laughed, letting Song Ge lie on the ground and scream miserably. "What are you thinking?" Xia Xia said angrily. "I mean, cut off his career line. I can make him call the wind and rain, and I can also make it difficult for him to move an inch. Why does this sound like something said by a gang leader?" Xia Xia sighed softly and said, "You don't know the darkness and dirtiness of the entertainment circle." Fang Yan asked worriedly, "Will Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin be okay? If they can't resist the temptation, I can't do anything. But if someone wants to hurt them, I will cut off his hands and feet. This time, I will really cut off his hands and feet." Xia Xia said coldly, "Those two little girls are quite lucky, with a big backer like you." Fang Yan said with a smile, "I'm not their backer. I'm their sister and friend. I want to take them with me to do something." Xia Xia said, "Women can also change the world. Or rather, change the world's perception of us. I've always believed that. I also believe that." Fang Yan said, "A woman's greatest dream was to promote Huaxia culture to the world, not to watch other people's culture invade." Fang Yan felt that this kind of woman was as great as him. Fang Yan raised his teacup and said, "A toast to you." "For what?" "For our noble sentiments." Fang Yan said. Xia Xia laughed loudly and said, "Fang Yan, every time I chat with you I'm very happy. But you can't like me. There are too many people who like me. Fang Yin said. When there are so many people, I don't know how to choose. Who asked me to be a Libra? It's a bit too much, I won't go join in the fun. Xia Xia said with a hint. Fang Yin laughed dryly and didn't speak. Some things were better not said. Xia Xia looked at the antique decorations in the tea house and said, the owner of the tea house must be a very elegant person. It's not called the Stargazing Tea House. It's not called the Maple Appreciation Tea House. It's called the Wind Listening Tea House. In his heart, even listening to the wind is a romantic thing. Then stargazing and maple appreciation are naturally not inferior. From the low place to see the rolling clouds. From the wet place to see the ninth heaven thunder. This person is very kind. Fang Yin nodded and said, it's just that the psychology of the nouveau riche is serious. Is there a need to put so many precious wood and antiques all over the house? It's like he's afraid that others don't know he's rich. What Sir said is very true. It's us who have fallen into the cliché. A middle-aged Taoist walked over with an incense burner and a smile. He walked to the table occupied by Fang Yin and Xia Xia and stopped. He put the incense burner on the table and said, honored guests have come to visit. I'll give you a pot of tree incense. Please don't refuse. Fang Yin took a sniff. It was authentic ambergris. Moreover, the quality was higher than the ambergris he collected, and the smell was also purer. Fang Yin stared at the middle-aged Taoist warily and said, who are you? Why did you give us tree incense? You didn't poison it, did you? Meeting by chance is also fate. Does Sir not believe in fate? Do you think I'm an idiot? Giving someone tens of thousands of yuan worth of ambergris incense, when you meet by chance? Why didn't you give it to the two fatso in the corner? Why didn't you give it to the couple in the 30-degree position? Why did you give it to us? Sir and I are fated. Fang Yin interrupted the Taoist and pointed at Xia Xia. You're not thinking of hitting on her, are you? I'm a monk, I don't get close to women. Then you want us to buy your amulet? Fang Yin was extremely angry. Every time I walk on the street, I'll meet monks wearing Taoist robes who pull me to buy amulets. They say that they're fated with me at first glance. Only a fool would believe that. Tell me, how much is your amulet worth? Seeing that you gave us tree incense, we're willing to be cheated by you this time. But let me make it clear in advance. I won't pay more than 100 yuan. The middle-aged Taoist's facial muscles twitched. His body swayed, and looked like he was about to fall. Chapter 292. Tianjizi felt very strange. According to his cultivation, it was impossible for him to have such a hysterical state. Was he going to suffer a heavenly tribulation? However, it was not enough to suffer a heavenly tribulation. If the white-browed monk suffered a heavenly tribulation, how could he not be punished by the heavens? That was because he was angry. Angry. The word angry had not been in Tianjizi's emotional world for many years. He had been cultivating all his life, calm and peaceful, and his thoughts were clear. He did not fight for anything, and rarely had conflicts with others. There were very few things in this world that could touch his spirit mirror Tao heart. He cultivated and nourished qi, but the qi he cultivated and nourished was qi activity. It was the body's nutrition and energy, and it was the driving force for him to seek the Tao and finally break through the void. Qi could cut hair and wash marrow, strengthen the body, and make people achieve immortality. However angry, he tried hard to think about it, but he really forgot when and why he was angry last time. Why could this young man make him so angry when he opened his mouth? After thinking about it, Tianjizi's eyes instantly lit up. Tao fate. Because they were fated, he was able to break through his own heart. Otherwise, so many people could not break through. But he could make him lose control of his emotions? Tianjizi looked at Fang Yin with even more scorching eyes, which startled Fang Yin. He said, you are not here to flirt with her. And you are not here to sell talismans. You want to flirt with me? The smile on Tianjizi's face instantly froze. His mouth slanted and his eyes protruded, and his body trembled even more violently. He was sure that he was going to suffer a heavenly tribulation. Otherwise, why did he feel like he was being struck by lightning? However, didn't the long-eyebrowed monk say that when he encountered the heavenly tribulation, he would experience 9 divine thunders? Why did he only experience 5? Was it because his cultivation was too low? Or that monks were more unlucky than Taoists? Xiaji held back his laughter, kicked Fang Yan under the low table, looked at Tianjizi and said, "What can I do for you, Jinren?" Tianjizi chanted the lousy Qingyo incantation several times, and with great difficulty, he suppressed the murderous intent in his heart. He bowed to Xia Xia with one hand and said, "This humble Taoist feels that I have fate with this little friend, so I came here to have a chat." Tianjizi looked at Fang Yan and said, "I'm not a lecherous person, nor am I someone who sells talismans for profit. I just want to have a chat with you. I don't have any evil intentions, nor do I have any malicious intent." Fang Yan looked at Tianjizi doubtfully and asked, "What do you want to talk to me about?" Tianjizi pointed to the chair next to the low table and said, "May I have a seat?" "Sit," Fang Yan said. He was a little curious about this Taoist priest. Tianjizi sat down on the side of the low table, looked at Fang Yan and asked, "Little friend, are you a martial artist?" "I know how to use Tai Chi," Fang Yan said. He looked at the Taoist priest's sitting posture and said, "From the outside, you don't seem to know any martial arts at all. But when you pulled out the chair, I felt a hidden movement in your chi, which made me wary. This chair is made of sour pear wood and weighs dozens of kilograms. You lifted it up as if you were grabbing a handful of cotton wool. It seems that you are also an expert." Xia Xia looked at the middle-aged Taoist priest doubtfully, thinking, "This is also a martial arts expert?" These days, there are experts everywhere. In the blink of an eye, several of them have slipped away from under your nose. The Taoist priest took the tea that Xia Xia poured for him and said with a smile, "I can't be considered an expert. I just used decades of martial arts to train my strength." "Well said," Fang Yan sincerely praised. "In the future, if others say that I'm an expert, can you lend me that sentence?" Tianjizi laughed and said, "You can take it. But I think that what you said just now, know how to use Tai Chi, is more effective. Experts who have the heart of Tai Chi, the number of Hua Xias in Nua, that can be counted on one's fingers. If this is only 2 hands of Tai Chi, what about the other practitioners?" Fang Yan's eyes became sharp and said, "You know me? I was lucky to be at the scene of the Battle of One Sword Peak." Tianjizi looked into Fang Yan's eyes and said, Fang Yan was shocked and said, "I didn't feel your existence." Not only Fang Yan didn't feel it, but the Ministry of War also didn't feel it, because at that time, the Ministry of War said that there were only 3 people present who could fight with him. After this battle, he must visit them one by one. Fang Yan learned from Lei Feng's good example, and helped him point out who the 3 experts were. But this middle-aged Taoist priest was not included. Many people thought that only those who were good at fighting were real warriors. Of course, this was not wrong. However, being good at hiding was also a unique skill. The enemy was already at your door, but you still didn't know he was there. Just thinking about it made people's scalps tingle, and their backs turn cold. "My little friend, don't panic," Tianjizi said, waving his hand. "When I hide in the wind, I become the wind. When I hide in the forest, I become a tree, a flower, and a grass. When the wind comes, I move, and when insects come, I don't panic. They and I are one. My little friend, your heart of Tai Chi has reached a higher level, and even the birds are willing to play with you. Isn't it the same? There are 3,000 ways in the world, but in the end, they all lead to the same destination. There is no difference between you and me." Fang Yan's hostility toward this Taoist priest deepened. This old guy followed him to the One Sword Peak to watch the battle between him and the Ministry of War. And he also saw the scene of him playing with the birds today. Was he a stalker? Fang Yan looked at the Taoist priest and asked, "How should I address you?" "My Taoist name is Tianjizi," the middle-aged Taoist priest said. "Tianjizi, why do you always follow me? I was fighting with the Japanese sword god, and you followed me. I caught a bird to play with, and you also peeped behind my butt. What do you want? Now that you have come to me, you must be ready to lay your cards on the table, right? My little friend, you are very vigilant." Nonsense. 9 out of 10 Taoist priests these days are liars, and one is a bastard. He always grabs your hand and says that you will suffer a bloody disaster. There were several times when I wanted to make him suffer a bloody disaster. He sells talismans, and I only lose some money. You don't even sell talismans, which means that what you are after is bigger. Who knows what I will lose? Some things are not things to give but things to gain. If you give, but if you don't give, how can you gain? Tianjizi said. My little friend, can you tell me why you learn martial arts? So that others can't bully me, Fang Yan said. After thinking for a while he added, when I want to bully others, I don't worry that they will hit me. If that's the case, then why did you risk your life to accept the challenge from Chiba? Tianjizi asked with a smile. From what I saw and thought, you didn't have any confidence that you could win against that Japanese swordsman, right? You didn't give in even an inch, because you were proud and hot-blooded. Am I right? You took the initiative to challenge me and bullied me. How could I cower and run away? The worst outcome would be death. If I died, thousands of Fang Yans would stand up and kill him. No matter what, I wouldn't suffer too much, Fang Yan said. Death is good. In order to uphold the dignity of a martial artist and protect the orthodox martial arts of Huaxia, you were willing to fight to the death with the Japanese sword god, even though you knew that you were not as strong as him. Just this alone makes you stand out among your peers. Actually, I thought of asking for help, but they didn't come. You are frank and direct, and you have the courage to admit to others that you are timid and cowardly. It's human nature to look for a solution when you encounter difficulties, but in the end, you relied on your own courage and ability to defeat your opponent. I am not timid and cowardly for a moment. I have always been timid and cowardly. Not only do I have that kind of thought, but I also put it into action. If I invited someone over, it would be him fighting the Japanese sword god, and I would be eating melon seeds and chatting on the side. You are a chivalrous person. Why did you purposely make yourself look so bad? Tianjizi looked at Fang Yan and asked, worried that people will criticize you and make fun of you? Fang Yan sighed softly and said, you are so shameless to praise me. Tell me, what do you want? Tianjizi's expression was solemn, and his eyes were clear. His body was like a sleeping tiger or a coiled dragon, emitting a calm and peaceful aura. Ambergris smoke lingered in the air, and the faint fragrance was refreshing, making one's body completely relax and mind travel to the heavenly realm. This guy is good at showing off, Fang Yan thought. Tianjizi looked at Fang Yan and said in a compassionate tone, the wind is strong, the tide is surging. The flood dragon totem, the fire phoenix nirvana, the dragon soul of Huaxia. The glory is inextinguishable. The spirit of martial arts, the sun and the moon shine together. Thieves and evildoers covet from all directions. We should rise up and fight against them, using our hearts to punish them. The ancients said, establish a heart for the heaven and earth. Establish a life for the people. Inherit the lost knowledge for the saints, and establish peace for the world. The revival of China, and the protection of the dragon soul. We have no other responsibility. Fang Yan was stunned by these majestic words and said, what should I do? Do you know the Tai Chi diagram? Tai Chi diagram? Yes. Fang Yan nodded. It is said that it was passed down by the Song dynasty Taoist Chen Tuan, and its original name is the Wuji diagram. According to historical records, Chen Tuan once passed down the pre-celestial diagram, Tai Chi diagram, river diagram, and Luo Shu to his student Zhong Fang, who in turn passed them down to Mu Xiu, Li Zhe, and others. Later, Mu Xiu passed down the Tai Chi diagram to Zhou Dunyi. The Tai Chi diagram we see now was passed down by Zhou Dunyi. I have one hanging on the wall in my room. I look at it several times a day. What's wrong? Tianjizi smiled soundlessly and said, the painting of Tai Chi I am talking about is not the kind that can be bought on the street, but the real treasure of Taoism, the painting of Tai Chi, one of the 4 great books of Huaxia, along with the painting of the river, the book of Luo, and the innate painting. Fang Yan stared at Tianjizi with his eyes wide open, and asked, why are you telling me this? I want to choose a fated person to pass down the Tai Chi diagram to, and let him protect our dragon soul of Huaxia. Then go find him. Fang Yan said. Why are you telling me this? Chapter 293. As an innocent bystander. Xia Xia was worried that Tianjizi might slap Fang Yin to death at any time. Xia Xia thought, if I were this Taoist priest, I would also slap Fang Yin to death. This is too much. Sure enough, Tianjizi raised his wrist. His palm kept shaking, but the tea in the cup didn't spill at all. Not only that, but the steam coming out of the cup suddenly disappeared. It was a strange scene. The steam was boiling a second ago, but in an instant, the smoke disappeared, the steam dispersed, and the hot water turned into cold water. Pa! Tianjizi slammed the cup on the table. The tea didn't break, but the sour pearwood table started to shake. Xia Xia was shocked and couldn't help leaning back. She was worried that Tianjizi would not be able to hold back his anger and pour the tea in the cup onto Fang Yan's face. In the end, she would be in trouble because the tea was so hot. She did not want to be disfigured. On second thought, she realized that masters should not pour tea on each other, pull each other's hair, and kick each other's balls. The tea was not cold but frozen. Xia Xia touched it with her finger. It was real ice. Ovo. Xia Xia's eyes, which always gave people a sense of intellectual elegance, suddenly became like this. She couldn't accept and believe such a change. Was this magic? The golden poo or tea had turned into golden ice cubes, sparkling and translucent under the illumination of the light. It looked very cute. Fang Yin was also shocked. He knew this Taoist priest was a master, but he didn't expect him to be a master of a master. Just by using the move turning water into ice, it was already amazing. His internal strength cultivation could leave him several streets behind. Tianjizi closed his eyes and muttered something. His lips moved faster and faster, and then he suddenly let out a muffled roar. The shout was not loud, but it was extremely harsh. Xia Xia's face was pale, and Fang Yan's ears felt as if they were being pricked by needles. It was very uncomfortable. Not only did Xia Chen and Fang Yan suffer, but the other guests of the Tingfeng tea house were also not spared. When they heard this shout, the faces of those who were discussing turned ugly. The eyes of those who were looking at each other were filled with fear, and the smiles on the faces of those who were chatting and laughing became stiff and ferocious, as if they were discussing how to chop someone up. They all felt as if they had been hit by something, but no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't find the weapon that had hurt them. They all thought it was a panic attack, and were focused on doing their own things. However, they were startled by the sudden sound. Therefore, they all pointed at the middle-aged Taoist priest and cursed him. Why are you shouting in the middle of the night? Don't you have any manners? This was a more elegant way of scolding. Old man, you must be tired of living. Do you believe that I won't slap you to death? This was a more courageous way of cursing. To be honest, Fang Yin was quite looking forward to him coming over to slap the old guy. Which dog is barking in public? Hurry up and bring it back. Don't run around. This was a curse that brought about one's own destruction. Fang Yin couldn't bear to look in the direction of where he was. Tianjizi paid no attention to the attacks and insults outside. He slowly opened his eyes, and his expression became bright and clear again. He had the demeanor of an expert. He looked at Fang Yin and said, Buddhism pays attention to the fruit of suffering, and Taoism pays attention to fate. My young friend Fang Yin, you and I are fated. Otherwise, how could you repeatedly break my Taoist heart with just a few words? Although this curse came from my mouth, it started because of you. So, this resentment should also be placed on you. Xiaji helplessly looked at Tianjizi and said, Spiritual master, Fang Yin also often breaks my peace. Xiaji had the most right to speak about this kind of thing. When she and Fang Yin met for the first time, all kinds of unpleasant things happened. Fang Yin had a kind heart, but he had a venomous tongue. Feng Yuanqing almost died of anger when he met him. That's also because you are fated. Tianjizi pretended to be profound, and said with the face of a charlatan. If you are not fated, the world is so big, and there are so many people. How can only the two of you sit in this Tingfeng tea house, and drink tea and listen to the wind? Xiaji's mouth slightly opened. She felt that what he said was so reasonable, that she was actually speechless. Tianjizi's focus was on Fang Yan, so he once again put his gentle and kind eyes on Fang Yan's face, and said in a clear voice, If we are fated, we should cherish the fate. I and my young friend Fang Yan hit it off the moment we met. And I see that you have the heart of Tai Chi. But you are not arrogant and rash. You have a noble character and wisdom like the sea. Therefore, I think my young friend Fang Yan is the most suitable inheritor of the Tai Chi diagram. Fang Yan stared at Tianjizi and said, You want to give the Tai Chi diagram to me? Not give, it's pass. Tianjizi corrected his words. That was a treasure. Could it be given away? It could only be passed on. Look at what the ancients said. Carry on the sacred arts of the past. They used the word inherit. For free. For free. You just said that it is the treasure of your Taoism? Indeed. You also said that there is a dragon soul in it. To protect Huaxia's dragon soul. Are you crazy? Fang Yan asked with a look of disbelief. Why don't you hide such a good thing for yourself and give it to an outsider like me? It's good to pass it on to your son and grandson. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if you have been married and had children. It's also good to sell it. If it is really as mysterious as you said, it can definitely be sold for a good price. Tianjizi felt something flowing out of the corner of his mouth. He was too embarrassed to wipe it with his sleeve. He felt that it was too embarrassing. Was this the fated person he had chosen? What kind of F***king monster was this? Could such a person really inherit the Taoist culture and protect Huaxia's dragon soul from being extinguished? Tianjizi reached out and grabbed the teacup that he had just slammed on the table. The coldness of his palm calmed the anger in his heart a little. He looked at Fang Yan with a serious face and said in a selfless manner, That is the treasure of Huaxia. It is shared by everyone in Huaxia. How can I keep it for my own selfish reasons? Also, the Tai Chi painting can't be sold. We can't sell our totem and spirit. Fang Yan's face darkened. He said, You mean that the Tai Chi painting can't be sold or passed on to my son and grandson? That's right. Tianjizi said firmly. This kind of thing was not negotiable. What can I do with it? Inherit the Taoist culture and protect Huaxia's dragon soul. If you have a great opportunity, you might be able to decipher the 9 syllables mantra in the Tai Chi painting. I think it will definitely benefit you for the rest of your life. If you give me something, I can't sell it. I can't pass it on to my son or my girlfriend. The only thing I can do with it is to play a word-solving game. In the end, when I'm about to die, I still have to pass it on to someone else. Wait for a new fated person to appear. The Tai Chi painting will naturally have a new inheritance. Tianjizi said. Am I crazy? Fang Yan was so angry that his body was trembling. He pointed at Tianjizi's nose and scolded. What good does this do me? I don't get anything. If you give it to me, I have to give it to someone else. What if I have feelings for it? What if I can't bear to give it to someone else? If that's the case, I might as well not have it in the first place. That's the Tai Chi painting. One of the 4 great books of Huaxia. It's everyone's dream. Tianjizi wanted to try harder. Whoever wants it can take it. Fang Yan said angrily. I've heard a lot of stories like this. A monk or a Taoist priest pretending to be mysterious. Or a wretched-looking old man. They pulled a young man passing by and said, Young man, I see that you have a clear bone structure, an imposing appearance and a root of wisdom. You are a rare martial arts genius. If you concentrate on cultivation, you will become a great person in the future. Come here. I have a book called 18 Dragons Subduing Palms. Whoever believes it is an idiot. Immortal, are you okay? Xiaji asked carefully. She felt that the Taoist priest had suffered a great blow tonight. She didn't know if he could bear it. The timing is not right. The timing is not right. Tianjizi said with infinite regret. The old monk is right. Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. Tianjizi stood up. When he turned around, he reached out and flicked his sleeves. The tea that had been frozen into ice melted again. Hot steam rolled over. Fang Yan's eyes widened. His mind trembled. He stared at the cup of tea without blinking. He stared at the rolling steam above the cup. He reached out his hand and touched it. The steam really did have heat. It was not a cheap trick on the street. The dead tree has come back to life. Fang Yan exclaimed. The dead tree has come back to life. He pushed the chair away and stood up, but the middle-aged Taoist priest was nowhere to be seen. He grabbed Xiaji's shoulder and asked, Did you see him? Did you see where he went? No. Xiaji shook her head. She didn't understand why Fang Yin was so excited all of a sudden. She didn't see him like this, even when the boiling hot water turned to ice. I'm looking at the tea in the cup. Fang Yin went to ask several people, including the waiters of the Tingfeng tea house. However, no one told him where Tianjizi had gone. Fang Yin stood in the Tingfeng tea house and cursed. Do you have any patience, old man? Do you have any integrity? You said that you will pass the Tai Chi diagram to me. Hurry up and give it to me. Don't you want to take me as your disciple? How can it be so easy to take a disciple? Other people's masters are crying and shouting, hugging their disciples' thighs and begging. If one day doesn't work, they will come 100 times. If one day doesn't work, they will come 100 days. Can't you at least hold on? When I don't agree, don't you know how to slap me? Fang Yin cried aggrievedly and shouted with red eyes, Godfather, where are you? Chapter 294. The smoke curled up and the wooden fish struck. Divine Jizi angrily pushed open the door, his face as dark as the bottom of a pot. The old monk stopped striking the wooden fish and looked at his old friend. I told you to wait and see, but you just had to be so impatient. Did you get frustrated? He's a bastard, Divine Jizi said with a bitter smile. I can't even talk to him normally. Which one of his words is serious? He's not a bastard. If he really was a bastard, why would we follow him for so long? The old monk shook his head. He's a smart person, too smart. He just used this bastard method to reject our request. Think about it. Based on our many days of observation and understanding, has he really done something that we find unsightly? You mean, he knows why we came, but he just doesn't want to be on the same path as us. He doesn't want to take on this responsibility, the old monk sighed. He's still young, still in the playful stage. Who would want to carry such a burden? Passing on the culture, protecting the dragon soul. These words sound easy to say, but it's hard to do. Someone has to do it, Divine Jizi said regretfully. There are still a few outstanding people in our generation. These youngsters, there has to be a few people who stand out. Didn't he already stand up? The monk said with a smile. He teaches and educates people, traditional Huaxia culture. Facing the challenge of the Japanese sword god Chiba, he didn't back down. Didn't he already stand up? What's missing is just a ceremony. We just need to be patient and give them more time. I think these kids won't let us down. Who knows, they might even do better than us in the future. Wu Jizi nodded and said, Is he really the fated one? What? The divine fortune teller, Divine Jizi is starting to doubt his own eyes? This kid is a bit strange. Just sitting with him makes me easily angry, violent. Even the Lao Tzu cleansing mantra can't suppress it. Because you care, the monk said. If you don't care, why are you so angry? In your hands, he is the most suitable inheritor of the Tai Chi painting, right? You think too highly of him, so you're more concerned about gains and losses. I almost wanted to squeeze his neck and force him to accept this task. Tian Jizi laughed heartily. However, it's impossible for this kid to escape from my grasp. You planted another seed? I just used our Taoist secret technique. Spring comes to withered wood in front of him. He stood outside the wall but couldn't enter. I think he would be interested in this. Amitba, you two continue to fight. Who knows, we might end up as a family, the monk said with a smile as he struck the wooden fish again. Talk, talk, talk. Fang Yin was very frustrated. He locked himself in his room, boiled a pot of water, and poured it into a teacup. He held the teacup full of water in his hand, and used the suction technique of Tai Chi to suck away the steam inside the teacup. The boiling water that had just been boiled immediately became cold water. He once again infused Qi into the teacup. The cold water slowly froze, then became a snow-white ice cube. He flicked his sleeves at the teacup. A scorching force blew through the mouth of the teacup, and the ice cube instantly melted into water. It was a simple cup of cold water. Fang Yin painfully banged his head against the wall. What's missing? What's missing? Fang Yin couldn't understand. Why did the same cup of ice melt with a flick of his sleeves and turn into hot tea? Why couldn't I do it? Why did I only get a cup of cold water when I melted the ice? This was the obstacle of consciousness. It was also called the critical point. From point A to point B was only separated by a thin wall. As long as one opened a door, they could jump from point A to point B. But where was that door? Don't underestimate this thin wall. Many times, it could trap a genius in the same place for the rest of his life. Fang Yan was walking on a road that no one had ever walked before. Or rather, someone had walked on this road, but he didn't know who, so he had no experience to learn from. He asked the old drunkard, and the old drunkard told him to explore it by himself. The road ahead was long, and he was also in the stage of exploration. Fang Yan could feel that he was the same kind of person as the old drunkard, and also the same kind of person as Yi Ro. However, Tianjizi obviously stood at a higher level, a higher position. He could give him guidance. Fang Yan really wanted to grab him and ask him, "What's going on with me now? Why did the state of Tai Chi become completely incomprehensible and unfamiliar to me? What's its final form? What's my goal? What should I work toward?" Zhang Chen wanted to practice Qi by force, so he had his own confusion. Fang Yan also had Fang Yan's troubles. Fang Yan could answer Zhang Chen's questions, but few people could answer Fang Yan's questions. There were too many unanswered questions in his heart, and every answer was incomparably important to him. If Tianjizi could help him solve the problem, not to mention calling him master, he could even call him godfather. Other people could call him godfather for a bit of money. So what was wrong with him calling him godfather for the sake of his supreme pursuit of martial arts? Fang Yan really didn't mind. Bang, bang, bang. He knocked his head on the wall again and again. He really wanted to know, what did he do wrong? What did he lack? Bang, bang, bang. The sound of his head hitting the wall came again. Fang Yan looked at his head in confusion. It hadn't hit the wall. Someone was knocking on the door. Fang Yan walked over and opened the door. Jiang Qin was standing at the door in a nightdress with a smile. Fang Yan looked at Jiang Qin and asked, "Why aren't you sleeping?" "I can't sleep. So I came to chat with Mr. Fang," Jiang Qin said shyly. It was a little embarrassing to stand in front of his teacher in the middle of the night. "I'm already asleep," Fang Yan said. "Let's talk tomorrow. Hurry up and rest. We have to get up in a few hours to film. The next scene will be the scene of the sun rising. You have to rest well and show your most beautiful posture to the audience." Jiang Qin looked a little wronged, but he tried to smile and said, "Okay. Good night, Mr. Fang." "Good night," Fang Yan said with a smile. Jiang Qin turned around and left. He entered his room and closed the door. The door of the room next door opened. He stood at the door with a cardigan sweater over his pajamas. "She's sad," Xia said. "I'm also doing this for her own good," Fang Yan said. "One day she'll understand your painstaking efforts," Xia said. "She'll be glad to have a teacher like you." "It's late. Go to sleep," Fang Yan said. He waved at Xia Ji, then turned around and entered his room. Xia Ji stood at the door and looked at the closed door of Fang Yan's room in a daze. This man, what kind of man is he? Because the entire crew lived on this floor, he refused to let students enter his room. He was worried that some people would see it and bring trouble to Jiang Qin. The entertainment circle was a circle of right and wrong. A small joke like Jiang Qin knocking on the door of a male teacher's room in the middle of the night might seem inconspicuous now. But when she really became famous, those hidden monsters would jump out and bring her a lot of trouble. Fortunately, he was very sober. When Xia Ji saw Fang Yan for the first time, it was the scene of Fang Yan standing under the rising red sun and playing Tai Chi therefore. She stubbornly believed that it was the most beautiful scene, and that such a scene must be included in her MV. Thus, the whole crew got up early the next day to shoot the sunrise. The two little girls, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, were in very good spirits. They took the initiative to help distribute lunch boxes to the staff of the crew. Fang Yan paid special attention to Jiang Qin, and was relieved when he found that there was no abnormality. After all, she was just a child. Her mood was bad and good faster. After a night's rest, she probably couldn't remember what happened yesterday. Seeing that Xia Ji was looking at them, the two looked at each other and smiled. The shooting plan was temporarily modified. They still shot the scene of the rising red sun, but the shooting location was not in the slightly flat sky, but in the tiger leaping gorge. Song Ge thought that the terrain there was higher and the location was steeper. If it was filmed there, it would give people a more beautiful and three-dimensional feeling. More importantly, he was going to let Fang Yan do Tai Chi on the left side of the Tiger Leaping Gorge, and let Xia Ji take Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin to the right side of the Tiger Leaping Gorge to do Tai Chi left and right, hard and soft. They did it at the same time, with several cameras working at the same time. When the time comes, the edited MV must be beautiful. This was Song Ji's original words. Xia Ji was a workaholic. After listening to Song Ji's explanation, he also felt that this idea was very good. Thus, the group rushed to the Tiger Leaping Gorge. The Tiger Leaping Gorge was the place where Fang Yan encountered the monster killer group last time. There were two tall cliffs on the left and right side. It was said that on the night of the full moon, a fierce tiger howled at the moon, and then jumped from the cliff on the left to the cliff on the right. The monster group's grave was covered with weeds, but the Tiger Leaping Gorge was still gloomy and ghostly, giving people infinite temptation and pushing people away. Song Ge liked this place very much and said happily, "It's so beautiful. So beautiful. That's the feeling I want. Dark and lonely, like an old man in his twilight years. But when the first ray of sunlight shines on the Tiger Leaping Gorge, it gives people a feeling of light and hope. It must be unbelievably beautiful." Xia Ji was also very satisfied with this place, and was full of expectations for the later filming. Because Fang Yan was the main character in the MV, he needed to play Tai Chi on the cliff facing the east. On the other hand, Xia Ji, Jiang Qin, and Yuan Lin needed to go down to the mountainside and take the ropeway to the other side of the Tiger Leaping Gorge. Of course, Song Ge also followed Xia Ji to the other side. On Fang Yan's side, there was only an assistant director accompanying him. The assistant director asked Fang Yan to tie the rope, but Fang Yan waved his hand to indicate that there was no need. This level of danger was within his tolerance range. On the opposite side of the cliff, Xia Ji, Jiang Qin, and Yuan Lin were being tied up with safety ropes by the staff. At this moment, Xia suddenly cried out in alarm and fell forward. There was a slope in front of her. Her body slid down the slope for a while and fell down the cliff. At this time, Xia Ji's seat belt was not yet locked. Chapter 295. In the blink of an eye, Summer, who was standing beside him, had fallen off the cliff. It happened too fast. It was so fast that it was hard for people to react. Song Ge and the others didn't even have time to make a frightened movement or make any sound. They just shouted something. The summer disappeared from their eyes. Of course, this was just the reaction of a normal person. Fang Yan was not a normal person. When he heard Summer's exclamation, he already felt that the situation was not good. When he saw Summer's head sliding down the slope, he already had a premonition of what was going to happen. Therefore, when Summer fell off the cliff, Fang Yan had already finished 2 consecutive run-up runs. He tiptoed on the edge of the cliff, and his body quickly fell to the cliff, rushing towards Summer, who was on the opposite side of the cliff. Whoosh! The wind was whistling in Summer's ears. She felt the cold wind of the canyon cutting her face. She felt her body was cold and stiff. Her mind was blank. She could only hear her own breathing and heartbeat. "I'm going to die." She was really unwilling. Summer's heart was full of regret and regret. She was so young. She still had a lot of things to experience. She hadn't been in love. She hadn't fulfilled her music dream. She still had a lot of things to eat, and a lot of places to go. How strange, it wasn't her own heartbeat. Her heartbeat wasn't so hard, and her chest wasn't so wide. Summer opened her eyes and looked at Fang Yan's eyes. 1 second, or maybe even shorter. Fang Yan had already looked away, but she felt an unprecedented sense of security. This sense of security made her body no longer cold, the flesh on her face no longer hurt, and her mind returned to normal. Damn. Summer thought angrily in her heart. She was jumping off the cliff like Fang Yan. Why could she still feel safe? What was safe? Would it be safer to die together? Summer and Fang Yan had known each other for a while, but it was the first time she was so close to him. She looked at his side profile. It wasn't the kind of handsome European with a knife and axe. The curve was very soft. His eyes were very bright. They were falling fast, and his eyes were looking around like an eagle. He was about to die, so what was there to worry about? Xia Xia suddenly felt her side collide with the edge of the cliff. No, Fang Yin hugged her and duffed to the side. Fang Yin grabbed onto a long horizontal branch at the edge of the cliff. Because they were falling too hard, the tree branch creaked under their weight, and their legs kept swaying in the air. From rolling down the cliff to stopping, the summer felt as long as a century. However, to Fang Yin, it was merely a breath's time. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Fang Yin jumped off the cliff to intercept Xia Xia Kiki. After gliding in the air for a few tenths of a second, Fang Yin hooked his hand and grabbed the tree trunk. "Are you okay?" Fang Yin finally had the chance to ask this question. "I'm fine, Fang Yin, you." She really couldn't understand why Fang Yin would jump off the cliff to save her. Didn't he say that she wasn't his type, and that they wouldn't have a future together? Was there a need to invest so much? Fang Yin didn't answer her question. He looked up at the sky and shouted, "Throw the rope down. Quick, put the rope down, put the rope down." Song Ge and the security assistants on the top of the mountain finally reacted. They put down the rope that was originally used as a safety rope and held the other end in their hands. One person, 2 people, 3 people, a dozen people. They lined up in a column, each holding a section of the rope, ready to pull Fang Yin and Xia Ji up. Fang Yin told Xia Chen to hug him tightly. For safety's sake, he used his own legs to clamp Xia Chen's legs tightly together. This posture was really too embarrassing and too ambiguous. Fortunately, Fang Yin and Xia Chen were both simple-minded beauty. No one would think so much, and no one would admit that they did. In this way, Fang Yin's 2 hands were completely free. He hugged the tree trunk with one hand and took the rope with the other hand and pulled hard. The group of people on the mountain moved toward the edge of the cliff. The rope was very soft, and there were many factors that could not be fixed. "Tie the other end of the rope to a big tree. Tie it tightly," Fang Yin shouted. This time it was not a joke. If the rope accidentally fell when he grabbed the rope and climbed up, it would be very difficult for him to grab the life-saving object that could stop them from falling. Or if someone on the top of the mountain was pulled down the cliff, Fang Yin would be powerless to help save them at that time. With casualties, this MV shooting would become an accident. The police and the media would get involved. The aftermath would be very troublesome, and the impact would be very bad. This was the first time Fang Yin had experienced MV. He did not want to encounter such a bad thing at the beginning of his life. "Quickly tie the rope to the tree." Song Ge became a headless fly and anxiously ordered. If something happened to Xia Chen, the Xia family might vent their anger on him. After all, he was the one who requested to come to Tiger Leaping Gorge to shoot the MV, and he was the one who came up with the idea. This kind of responsibility was not something he could bear. Xia Chen's security assistant was still rational and said, "Director Song, if we tie the rope to the tree we can't drag it. How can they come up?" Song Ge thought about it, and also felt that something was wrong. Shouldn't Fang Yin tie the other end of the rope to him and Xia Chen? And the people on the top of the mountain should try their best to drag them up? They tied the rope to the tree trunk, and the tree would not help to drag them. Could it be that the 2 of them tied the rope and climbed up by themselves? How could they climb up? "Is it tied?" Fang Yin pulled the rope again and shouted, "Mr. Fang, should we drag you up?" "Tie the rope to the tree. You don't have to worry about anything else." Fang Yin shouted. Creak, creak. The trunk of the small tree that Fang Yin was hugging was bent to the extreme. This small tree, which was as thick as the mouth of a bowl, was not enough to support the strength of 2 people. Soil began to roll down from its roots. "Fang Yin, the tree is going to break," Xia Chen said with a pale face. "It's okay. We have enough time," Fang Yin said. As he spoke, he had already grabbed the rope and did not let go. Even if the small tree broke immediately, they would not fall off the cliff. "It's tied," Song Ge shouted from the top of the mountain. Fang Yin was worried and pulled hard. The rope was straight and hard, and the other end was tied very firmly. As long as the tree was strong enough, there should be no problem with the rope. "All of you get out of the way," Fang Yin shouted. Song Ge looked around and asked, "You said to get out of the way. Where should we go? No one answered, because everyone saw a horrifying and thrilling scene. They saw Fang Yan hugging Xia Chun with one hand and holding the rope with the other. After wrapping the rope around his wrists a few times, he swung his body towards the cliff on the right. They were like two gourds on a vine, crashing into the stone wall on the other side. Both of his feet stepped on the cliff, and his body once again rushed towards the cliff on the left. Both of his feet stepped on the cliff on the left, and his body once again swung to the right. Back and forth. Fang Yan was like a naughty monkey playing on the two blades cliff. After borrowing strength several times, his body suddenly jumped high and jumped on top of Song Ji's head with Xia Chun in his arms. The hero saving the beauty had to be cool. This was the second cool climbing posture that Fang Yan could think of. When Song Ge was still hesitating about where to hide, the security assistant pushed him away, which avoided the tragic fate of being kicked to the bottom of the cliff by Fang Yan and Xia Chun. In that case, Song Ge would only have a dead end, because the security assistant knew that Fang Yan would not play eagle fall for Song Ge. The security assistant really knew about safety. Xia Chun lay in Fang Yan's arms and gasped. Until now, she did not dare to open her eyes. It was too exciting, it was really too exciting. She had made many movies and TV series, climbed mountains, jumped over rivers, and even played high-altitude leaps on the skyscrapers of Dubai. However, that was when there was a steel wire hanging from it. Moreover, most of the actions in the film and TV series were completed by post-production. The scene that you think is cool and exciting may just be completed in the recording studio. However, Fang Yan made such an action with one hand grabbing the rope. This is simply challenging human cognition. Song Ge sat on the ground and looked at Fang Yan with her mouth wide open. She was speechless for a long time. He didn't know if he was stimulated or scared. Maybe it was both. The three security assistants of the crew stared at Fang Yan. A bearded man gave a thumbs up to Fang Yan. The bearded man was called Zhou Deqiang, the head bodyguard of Xia Chun. Originally, he did not like Fang Yan very much. He thought that he was just a pretty boy who knew a few tricks. Because he was good-looking and glib, he was able to get Miss Xia Chun's trust. This feeling was as complicated and contradictory as the princess guarded by the warrior was taken away by the prince, and the daughter raised by the father was about to be cheated away by the bastard son-in-law. However, with Fang Yan's quick reaction after Xia Chun fell off the cliff, and his ability to climb at high altitude, his ability could kill them dozens of times. He came over and wanted to pat Fang Yan's shoulder, but he felt that this action was a bit disrespectful to an expert. So he took his hand back. He looked at Fang Yan and said, "Master Fang, thank you. Our brother's negligence caused Miss Xia Chun to be in danger. If it weren't for you, the consequences would be unimaginable." The other two security assistants also came over to thank Fang Yan. They were smiling on their faces, but they were crying in their hearts. With this guy here, they were afraid that they would lose their jobs, right? Chapter 296. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were frightened. They stood together with Summer, and were about to buckle the rope around their waists, when Summer exclaimed and disappeared. The two little girls were deeply loved by Summer. When they were in Yanjing, they received a lot of help from Summer. Summer was usually busy with work, but she often asked her assistant to send them some daily necessities. As long as she had free time, she would drive to school to pick them up, and the three of them would go out to eat and go shopping together. Their relationship was not like that of master and apprentice, but more like that of sisters. Summer fell off the cliff. Their little faces were pale with fear, and their legs were weak. They couldn't even speak. Fortunately, Fang Yan chased after them and saved Summer. Only then did they recover some spirit and strength. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin rushed over and cried while hugging Summer. Life and death separated by a thin line. If it weren't for Fang Yan, they could only see Summer's corpse now. Maybe they wouldn't see it, because they couldn't go down the mountain in such a short time. Because Summer was still lying in Fang Yan's arms, the two of them also hugged Fang Yan. From a distance, it looked like the four of them were hugging their heads and crying together. Summer finally came to her senses. She got up from Fang Yan's arms, turned around and hugged Jiang Qin, and Yuan Lin in her arms. She comforted them and said, "Why are you crying? I'm fine, aren't I?" "Sister, you almost." Yuan Lin wiped her tears, and her little face was red from crying. "I thought I wouldn't see you." "Yes. As soon as we looked up, we couldn't see you. Then we saw them running to the edge of the cliff. Yuan Lin and I didn't dare to go over. We were so scared." Jiang Qin's eyes were also red. "With your omnipotent Mr. Fang here, sister will be fine," Summer said with a smile. She adjusted her mentality very quickly. "Look, aren't I standing right in front of you?" Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked at Fang Yen together. When they were about to thank Fang Yen, they found that Fang Yen was chatting with the security assistant. Fang Yen looked at the bearded Zhou Deqiang and asked, "Brother Zhou is a soldier?" Zhou Deqiang and his two brothers immediately became vigilant. They stared at Fang Yen and said, "Master Fang, why do you ask? He has been retired for at least 10 years, right?" Fang Yen said with a smile, "Although you've been away from the army for many years, your every movement still bears the mark of a soldier. For example, the way you stand, the tone of your voice, and some of the methods you use when you're on guard. You don't have to be nervous. I knew you were soldiers the moment I saw you. Master Fang has a good eye." Zhou Deqiang chuckled. "Protect Miss Summer well. She's a good person and deserves your attention," Fang Yen said. Zhou Deqiang looked at Fang Yen and said, "Master Fang, have you ever considered following Miss Xia? Miss Xia is a good person and treats you differently. If you guard her, you'll have a better development in the future." Zhou Deqiang was also a smart person. He knew that the pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. If Fang Yen was willing to be Xia Xia's bodyguard, perhaps the two of them would become an enviable couple. Miss Xia Xia had a good family background, good looks, and most importantly, she was kind-hearted, knowledgeable, and introverted. She was a good match for countless men. If Fang Yen could really get together with Xia Xia, it would be 100 times better than being a teacher in a middle school. Xia Xia's husband was a figure who could make headlines in the media from time to time. Zhou Deqiang thanked Fang Yen for his help in times of crisis, and also thanked him for comforting his brother. So this sentence was more straightforward. "I just want to be a quiet teacher." Fang Yen refused with a smile. "Reading, writing, and being with students, this is the best life I can imagine." Zhou Deqiang and his two friends immediately blushed. They felt that their hearts were too vulgar and dirty, and they were not worthy to talk and chat with Fang Yen. It was blasphemy to look at them. After the accident, everyone's mood was a little unstable. Under the security guard, the group of people retreated to the side of the road to drink water and rest. Song Ge was completely convinced by Fang Yen this time. No, it had risen to the level of worship. He now recalled how stupid it was to say that this guy had no talent and could not be used. He repeatedly expressed his gratitude to Fang Yen and hoped that they could contact each other more in the future. Fang Yen understood Song Ji's mentality and did not embarrass him anymore. Since there was no replacement for Xia Xia, he would not say anything more. Song Ge squatted in front of Xia Xia and said with a face full of fear, "Xia Xia, it's all my fault. I really didn't expect such a thing to happen. If I didn't choose such a dangerous place to shoot, you wouldn't have encountered such danger. Why don't we change places to shoot the MV?" Many people in the entertainment industry were superstitious. They believed in all kinds of gods. Every time they started filming, they would hold a starting ceremony and pray to the gods to bless them with smooth sailing and smooth shooting. Encountering an extremely dangerous thing during filming like today, almost causing casualties, made them feel that this was not an auspicious place. Changing the venue was also a matter of course. "I almost fell off the cliff because I accidentally stepped on a snake. It has nothing to do with the venue you chose," Xia Xia said. "If you think this venue is not good enough, we can change to a better one. However, if it's just because of this sudden accident, I think it's still better to shoot here." Fang Yen, what do you think? Next time tie the safety rope. Fang Yen said. "If I just happened to be dozing off or went to the toilet, wouldn't I not be able to chase after you to save you? Even if the others jumped down, they wouldn't be able to save you. Maybe they would fall even faster with you." A group of people laughed, and the oppressive atmosphere finally eased a little. Xia nodded and said, Fang Yin is right. We still choose to shoot in Tiger Leaping Gorge, and we still follow the original shooting plan. However, we must do a good job with safety measures. Not only me, but also my dear and Shaolin. Every staff member must do a good job with safety measures. People who are not related to the filming should not go there. Just stand in a safe area and do the logistics work. Miss, this time we will do a good job with safety, Zhou Deqiang promised. Yes. Don't feel pressured. Xia comforted. When everyone went to work, Xia sat next to Fang Yan. Xia looked at Fang Yan and said, You haven't answered my question yet. What question? Fang Yan asked. Why did you jump down? Xia's bright and intelligent eyes stared at every frame of Fang Yan's facial expression and asked aloud. Because I can. Fang Yan said. Xia angrily kicked Fang Yan and said with a wry smile. What kind of answer is that? Do you think you're Huaxia mobile? I didn't think that much at the time. Fang Yan looked at Xia and said, If I didn't have this skill, I might have made the same choice as them. I would have shouted for help, Summer fell down. And then I would have waited for you to completely fall down. Followed everyone to the Grand Canyon to find you. Waited for the police to come. Waited for your memorial service. And maybe even shed some tears. However, with this skill, I know I can save you. I know how I should save you. And I have to save you. That's why I jumped. Is that the reason? Xia asked. There was some regret, a little sadness, but also a sense of relief and joy. After surviving a disaster, there will be good fortune. Xia thought, it must be like this, right? That's the reason. Fang Yin said. It's not as complicated as you think. If Song Ge fell down, would you save him like this? Xia didn't know why he would ask such a boring question. Isn't this kind of unreasonable question that a 17 or 18-year-old girl would ask when she's acting coquettishly with her boyfriend? It's impossible to happen or hasn't happened yet, and you have to find a definite answer. Isn't this making things difficult for people? Could it be that she had suddenly contracted the princess syndrome? Save. Fang Yin said. You're not a broad-minded man. Because he's your compatriot? Xia broke the casserole and asked to the end. I'm not a broad-minded man, but I'm not a narrow-minded man either. Everyone has a family, parents, and children. If something happens to them, the ones who will be hurt the most will be the ones who love them the most. If I can save a family from a tragedy, I'm willing to do whatever I can to save them. This is the meaning of my martial arts. This is the meaning of the existence of Kung Fu. Fang Yin said with a dignified expression and a sincere voice. I just can't stand to see others cry. You guys are so great. Xia said. She was very glad that there was such a group of Huaxia martial artists, which gave them a sense of security. Americans have Spider-Man and Batman. Can't Huaxia have her own superhero? Besides, only after you save them can you see how grateful others are to you. Fang Yin said. At that time, your heart will be like drinking a bucket of ice water on a hot day. You will feel that your whole life has been sublimated. My heart is very happy. Fang Yin looked down at the pool of blood on his pants and was shocked. He said, Why am I bleeding? It doesn't make sense. He didn't encounter any danger at all. His actions to save people were very smooth, and the process was very smooth. How did he get hurt? What's more, he was safe and didn't feel any pain. Xia's face suddenly turned red. She fiercely glared at Fang Yin and said, It's my blood. Chapter 297. Are you hurt? Fang Yin was shocked. He thought about it seriously. At that time, he was quite careful to protect her. He didn't let her body touch the stone wall. When she fell on the tree, he pressed his body on it first, and then hooked the tree trunk with his hands. Could it be that she was scratched when she fell to the ground, when she was frightened by the poisonous snake? Xia, the intellectual beauty, was also angry with Fang Yin. Her cheeks were red, and her eyes were dripping water. She said angrily, You did it on purpose. I didn't do it on purpose. Fang Yin explained. If I deliberately hurt you, wouldn't it be better if I pretended not to see you fall off the cliff? I was kind enough to save you. How can you accuse me like this? Idiot. Xia kicked Fang Yan's knee. She got up and walked towards Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin. Remember to change your pants. Inexplicable. Fang Yan looked at the red blood on his trousers and said, Drama crew, please help me get a new pair of pants. There was still filming in a while. Fang Yan didn't want to play Tai Chi in a pair of bloodstained pants. Fortunately, he discovered it in advance. If it was discovered by the audience in the music video, it would be a great shame. Since Fang Yan performed a difficult ultimate teacher version of the hero, saving the beauty in public, the entire crew regarded him as an idol, and the number one person who couldn't be offended. His ranking was even higher than Xia. In this high mountain, if he accidentally fell down, he hoped that the hero could save him once, right? Besides, if he offended someone and they beat him up, he wouldn't have the chance to fight back. Presumably, his good colleagues and friends wouldn't help him. Therefore, everyone agreed to Fang Yan's request. As soon as Fang Yan shouted that he needed to change a pair of pants, 2 girls from the drama crew immediately ran over with several pairs of pants and asked Fang Yan which one he needed. Moreover, a round-faced girl blushed and asked Fang Yan if he needed her help changing pants. After all, she was a professional in this area. Fang Yan refused. Did they think they were 3 years old? He couldn't even do something as simple as changing his pants? It was too infuriating. Due to the incident of falling off a cliff in the summer, the production team raised the safety level to an unprecedented level. Other than the actors and cameramen, everyone else retreated to a safe area. Several security assistants whipped all the surrounding bushes with sticks. If there were any venomous snakes or scorpions, they would either drive them away or beat them to death with a stick. They were also holding back their anger in their hearts. If it wasn't for that poisonous snake rushing to Xia's feet, they wouldn't be so passive right now. Fang Yan went to the opposite cliff. Walk over there. Ordinary experts would not easily make a move, and those who did so were definitely not peerless experts. In this regard, Shimen Shui was very arrogant and pretentious. He first announced to the Jianghu, if a sword is not unsheathed, blood will be shed. When an enemy came to challenge him, he killed him with a single slash. His friend came to challenge him, and he killed him with a single slash. Her son came over to challenge her, and she secretly beat him up, pretending that nothing had happened. In this way, who would dare to challenge him? No one dared to challenge him, and he was able to maintain his reputation of being undefeated. Therefore, Fang Yan always felt that Shimen Shui was the smartest person in the Jianghu. Assistant Director Wang Ke treated Fang Yan differently this time. He personally walked to Fang Yan with the safety lock and asked, Master Fang, you don't need this thing, do you? I don't need it, Fang Yan said. He wanted to do Tai Chi without any scruples. What was a rope tied around his waist? But the others must be tied up. Understood. Understood, Wang Ke said with a smile. How can they be compared to Master Fang? We were just talking about how you can see a tiger jumping from one cliff to the other on a full moon night. Although we didn't see a real tiger jumping, we saw Mr. Fang jumping off the cliff. He jumped off the cliff to save someone. This is much more exciting than a tiger jumping off a cliff. It's just a small trick. Director Wang, you flatter me, Fang Yan said with a smile. Master Fang, this is the appearance of a real dragon. It's not a real dragon. It's just a fake dragon, Fang Yan said modestly. Wang Ke opened his mouth, but he didn't know how to continue. But he also realized that keeping silent was a very impolite behavior, so he quickly said, Mr. Fang, can we start? Miss Xia's side is ready. Fang Yan looked at the opposite cliff. Xia, Jiang Qin, and Yuan Lin were dressed in black and stood in a triangle. Xia stood at the front, while Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin stood on the left and right of her. The 3 girls were beautiful and charming. Wearing Tai Chi, they gave people a feeling of valiance. High mountains and deep valleys, the red sun rose, and the fog filled the air, making them look like immortals. One could imagine the visual impact when all of this was put into the camera. Song Gu raised her hand and shouted, Action. Wang Ke shouted at the same time, Start. So Fang Yan bowed slightly, held his hands in a circle, and began to draw a circle with the tip of his foot. Summer also began to dance. Xia pushed her hand, and Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin followed. Xia Xia turned around, and Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin also turned around at the same time. Several cameras moved at the same time, capturing the people on both sides of the cliff and making a moving picture. As the sun rose, rays of sunlight shone down, painting Fang Yan's body with a layer of gold. Even the mountains, the trees, the flowers, the grasses, and the pitch-black stones began to shine with a golden light. However, in the place where the sun didn't shine, the darkness was still sleeping, and the evil was still spreading. A man whose entire body was covered in green was lying flat on the grass, his mouth emitting a soft hissing sound. He took out a shiny leather bag from his bosom and opened it. A small snake with a fiery red body crawled out of the bag. The snake had no eyes, but it had a keen sense of smell. Urged by the hissing sound, it jumped up and rushed toward the forest in the distance. The man's triangular eyes showed a happy smile. He shook the leather bag and said in a very strange voice, "After drinking this bag of tonic, Little Red will complete the third transformation, right? What color will it become at that time? I'm really looking forward to it." "Bastard!" A clear shout suddenly came from behind him. The triangular-eyed man was shocked, and his body bounced on the ground and jumped up. He had short hands and feet, and there was a black mole on his face with red hair. His face looked quite strange. When he got up, he had already screwed the lid of the leather bag to prevent a drop of the liquid inside from leaking out. The triangular-eyed man stared at the Taoist priest on the tree. His voice was hoarse as if his vocal cords had been torn. He shouted angrily, "Who are you?" His expression was very vigilant, and his eyes were staring at the man in front of him. When he was invisible, he would set up a large formation of spiritual insects within 100 meters. Whenever there was a slight movement, the poisonous insects would make a sound to warn him. However, this Taoist priest came without anyone noticing. The spiritual snake formation was nothing, and he didn't even notice when he was a few meters away from him. It was really too strange. "Was the thing you released just now a blood eater?" Tianjizi asked coldly. "Who are you?" The triangular-eyed man asked again. "You nourish your blood with poison, feed your snake with poisonous blood, and know how to set up a large formation of poisonous insects. Are you the Xiangxi Snake King?" Tianjizi exposed the triangular-eyed man's identity. "Who are you?" The Snake King felt extreme danger. This man had broken through his spiritual snake array and exposed his identity. Moreover, after knowing his identity, this man was still arrogant and did not put him in his eyes at all. He was a little annoyed. "It doesn't matter who I am. A poisonous creature like you, who is neither human nor ghost, should be killed by everyone," Tianjizi said coldly. He didn't even want to tell others his name. The meaning of this sentence was very simple and straightforward. I can kill you, but you don't need to know my name, because killing you is not something to be proud of. Go to hell. Tianjizi jumped up and struck with his palm. It was a light palm. Boom. The place where the Snake King was standing was smashed into a hole. The Snake King rolled on the ground. When he got up, his face was covered in blood. He was as sinister as a snake, as cunning as a snake, as ghostly as a snake, and as vicious as a snake. He appeared and disappeared unpredictably. The name of the Xiangxi Snake King could stop children from crying at night, and adults from urinating frequently. He was known for his speed. No one could keep up with him since he started his cultivation. However, he was unable to dodge the Taoist priest's palm strike. Tianjizi's body was still floating in the air. What was even more strange was that his feet stepped on the air and continued to rise in the air. He also twisted his body at the same time. If Fang Yan saw this, he would be so shocked that he would be speechless. The Wudong sect had the cloud-climbing ladder. It was regarded as the secret qinggong of the Wudong sect. If that was all, Fang Yan wouldn't think it was too amazing. More importantly, this Taoist priest wasn't using the cloud-climbing ladder. He was using the more advanced heaven-climbing ladder. His ability to stay in the air was so powerful that it made people's hair stand on end. It really made people want to hug his leg and call him Godfather. The Taoist priest was surprised that he didn't kill the Snake King with his palm. This how was really insulting. It meant that he was still alive, and that it was unbelievable that he did not die from a single slap. Although the Snake King lived in seclusion in the valley, he still understood the emotional changes of humans. He wiped the blood off his face and was about to fight back. The Taoist priest's legs were floating in the air. He rushed toward where he was and struck again. Chapter 298. His body floated in the air as if he was riding on a cloud. This time he was even faster. His raised palms looked ordinary and didn't have any special effects. But it was more dangerous for the Snake Lord. Because he had lived with snakes for many years, eating and sleeping with them, he had the sensitivity and vigilance of a snake. He could sense danger. The Snake Lord was furious. He didn't do anything to provoke him, but he was doing bad things. Why did the bastard old Taoist want to kill him? His lips puckered up, and a shrill whistling sound came from his mouth. Snake Chariot. It was a high-level secret technique that could control poisonous snakes. He used the Snake Chariot to urge the poisonous snakes to fight for him. This was a fighting method that used sound to tempt people. Sure enough, the pure land that was 100 meters in radius without a single venomous snake or insect had suddenly turned into a land of evil in the world. Countless poisonous snakes of different sizes and shades of color were running in this direction. There were also some scorpions and other unknown poisonous creatures following them. Some frogs and mosquitoes were swept up by them and ran forward according to their rhythm. In the process of running, they were eaten by them in one bite. In the world of the Snake Lord, poisonous snakes were the absolute kings. The divine Jizi was in the air, so the poisonous snakes couldn't attack him. Therefore they raised their heads high and made creepy sounds. They were like a group of hungry children, waiting for the divine Jizi to fall. As long as Tian Jizi fell to a certain location, they would attack together and devour Tian Jizi's skin, flesh and bones. In the psychedelic world of the Snake Chariot, these poisonous snakes felt very hungry and had to find something to fill their stomachs. And under the guidance of their master, they would have a very crazy need for a certain object. The divine Jizi was furious. He put his hands together and crossed his fingers. The inside of his two thumbs collided with each other. He shouted, "Army!" Boom! His voice was like bronze knives and flying arrows. It was also like the Sanskrit of Buddhism. It could resist all evil spirits and demons in the world. Lin Bing and Doja were all in formation. This was the 9 symbols mantra of Taoism. What Tian Jizi used was the word army, from the 9 syllables of Taoism. The 9 syllables originated from the Eastern Jin dynasties, famous Taoist Gohong's Biopoesy Inner Volume. It goes like this: God said, "Those who fight with soldiers are always in groups." Ever since Gohong, the 9 words proverb of Taoism had been rumored to have great power. However, many people tried to recite it to no avail. Hence, the 9 words proverb was nothing more than a rumor. The Tantric sect was influenced by Taoism and adapted the 9 secret words. He mistakenly copied array in front as array in front, or display in front, and used it to this day. From the little finger to the thumb, they arranged the 5 elements, namely earth, water, fire, wind, and air. The right hand was wisdom, and the left hand was stability, with the 10 fingers connecting inside and outside as the meridians, and the chi and chakras in the body as the weft. They practiced the 6 elements. It could be said that the esoteric sect had made the 9 syllables Sanskrit famous. However, the Taoists still maintained this secret technique. Of course, not many people knew about it. The fact that Tian Jizi knew the 9 syllables of Buddhist incantation and was proficient in using it showed that he had a high status in the Taoists. The word army from Tian Jizi was like a huge bell, solemn and dignified. The word army carried a strong killing intent and was very aggressive. When the poisonous snakes and animals heard the shout, they immediately retracted their raised heads. They actually cut off the sound field of the snake carriage and turned around to escape into the depths of the forest. In an instant, all the poisonous creatures on the ground were swept away. Only the Snake Lord was badly injured, bleeding from his 7 apertures due to the sound of the word army. Tian Jizi slapped down with his palm, and Snake Lord's body flew into the sky like an ugly puppet. The Snake Lord knew that he couldn't resist Tian Jizi's attack, so he didn't resist it. Instead, he borrowed the force to escape. He didn't expect that the dwarf-like body had great wisdom. Tianjizi cursed inwardly. When he was about to give chase again, the Snake Lord had already disappeared. Instead, black smoke spread out in all directions. Tianjizi waved his sleeves and walked in the opposite direction of the black smoke. The white-browed old monk sat on a boulder at the top of the mountain, meditating and chanting scriptures. Tianjizi didn't pay attention to him, even when he came over. Tianjizi found a boulder and sat down to meditate alone. They had different beliefs, but they respected each other. It wasn't like thousands of years ago, when the Buddhist and Taoist sects were sworn enemies and fought each other. After he finished chanting the Rangyan mantra every morning, the white-browed old monk opened his eyes and looked at Tianjizi. He said, "You Taoists cultivate fate. If you don't have fate, you won't even hesitate to kill. If you used a thunderous method right from the start, I don't believe that poisonous creature could escape from your hands. Regardless of whether it's fate or karma, we have to let nature take its course. This poisonous creature should be a calamity in that brat's life. Why should I disturb the cycle of the world? That poisonous creature is a bit strange. Aren't you afraid that it will hurt that brat?" If the inheritor of the Tai Chi diagram we chose can't even deal with this little snake, how can we protect the peace of the Dragon Soul nation of Huaxia? You're even more stubborn. Yes, I've given up, Tianjizi said. The world asks us for karma. Who do we ask for the karma? What will come will come. What will go will go. Wind, rain, thunder, lightning, flowers bloom and wilt. All of them have their own destiny. Tampering with them, at will result in divine punishment. Then let's wait and see, the long-browed monk said. Tang Xian has gone through 81 difficulties to obtain the scripture. This brat has to show some ability to get the Tai Chi diagram. Tianjizi smiled bitterly and said, "It's good that he's willing to accept it. If he doesn't, we can only let the other brats take advantage of it." "I'm afraid it won't be cheap," the long-browed monk said. He closed his eyes, put his hands together, and once again faced the morning sun to do his homework. The sun was full of kindness and benevolence. Tianjizi chanted Immeasurable Heavenly Lord, and sat down cross-legged without saying anything. As soon as he sat down, his body became bright and dark. When the light was bright, so was he. When the light was dim, so was he. It looked quite magical. If Fang Yin saw this, he would probably exclaim that this old guy's entire body was a treasure. Fang Yin didn't have the clairvoyance eye, so he naturally couldn't see what was beyond his field of vision. He was busy practicing Tai Chi as the sun became brighter and warmer. His movements became bigger and bigger. He moved up and down, but it was beautiful and natural. On the opposite cliff, Xia Xia led Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin into the climax of the 12 styles of Tai Chi. The boxing movements of the three beautiful women, one big and two small, were even more pleasing to the eye than Fang Yan's side. At least that was what the male compatriots thought. Click! Song Ge shouted loudly into the walkie-talkie and made a stop gesture. Click! Wang Ko also hurriedly shouted to stop. The movement stopped and the machine stopped. Song Gu explained to Wang Ku and Fang Yin through the walkie-talkie, saying, "Great, the performance is very good. This is the most wonderful Tai Chi I have ever seen. I can imagine how wonderful and beautiful it will be after it is edited. I can't bear to shout, but I have to shout." Master Fang seems to be in good condition, but Miss Xia and Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin are already tired, and their foreheads are full of sweat. Take a break for a while, and then we will shoot some more shots. Xia Xia was indeed a little tired. She had just experienced such a critical moment of life and death, and her performance in front of the camera was not as relaxed and casual as her usual Tai Chi. She also needed to pay attention to the language and emotional expression of the camera. Her body really couldn't hold on. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were even more tired. The amount of exercise this morning was much more than their usual training at school. Hearing that they could rest, the logistics staff immediately rushed over and helped Xia Xia, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin to rest on the platform. The staff also put away the camera equipment and withdrew from the dangerous area of the cliff. In the place where they had just left, A small fiery red snake crawled out of the grass with a hissing sound. After returning to the hotel, they took a shower and rested, and then gathered for lunch. Lunch was not held in the internal restaurant of the Xianxia Hotel, because everyone felt that the food in the hotel was not delicious. After asking the guide, the crew went to a restaurant that looked pretty good. The restaurant also maintained the characteristics of Xianxia Mountain. The restaurant was built against the cliff, and next to it was a bottomless valley. Of course, the side was blocked with thick branches to prevent guests from accidentally falling off the cliff. Mountain mushroom chicken, wild vegetable flour fried wild eggs, fresh bamboo shoots fried with twice-cooked pork, white radish stew, with a lot of chili and spices. It was full of aroma and spiciness, and everyone was sweating profusely. Song Ge raised the cup of farm-brewed sour plum wine and said loudly, "The food is so delicious that I haven't had time to say until now. Everyone has worked hard today. Come, let's have a toast." Everyone raised their cups at the same time, and drank the sour plum wine in one gulp. Fang Yan liked the taste of this kind of sour plum wine very much, and he could taste it. This plum wine added several herbs from the mountains, which had the effect of promoting blood circulation and removing blood stasis, strengthening the kidneys and healthcare, and was very effective for sub-healthy people. Fang Yan was going to buy more from the boss when he left, and bring it back for his grandparents. Lu Chaoga's aunt could also take some, and that woman's physical condition was even more worrying. If she also went, Lu Chaoga would be alone in this world without a relative. Even Xia Xia, Jiang Qin, and Yuan Lin drank it all in one gulp, and did not act perfunctorily. At this moment, Fang Yan suddenly heard a slight noise in the grass behind him. He listened attentively, and a red line came to the back of his neck. It was as fast as a meteor, incredibly fast. Before anyone noticed anything wrong, Fang Yan turned 90 degrees like lightning. He picked up the red line with his chopsticks. A surprising scene appeared. The red line felt danger, and actually changed direction to escape sideways. How could Fang Yan let him escape? His body suddenly jumped out, and he and the chair flew together to the red line. Crack! His chopsticks picked up a small fiery red snake. After looking at the red line on the snake's body carefully, Fang Yan was so happy that his face almost changed shape. He raised his chopsticks and was about to put the snake into the sizzling soup pot, saying, "I'll give you a big tonic dish." Chapter 299. Fang Yan often felt very lonely. For example, when a person didn't know what to eat for dinner, or when a person forgot to bring paper while squatting in the toilet, or when he wanted to put the blood eater into the pot of soup but no one agreed. He felt that no one understood him. "Fang Yan, don't put that kind of dirty thing into the pot. Throw it away." Xia Xia looked at the fiery red earthworm-like object in the middle of the chopsticks in Fang Yan's hand, and said while suppressing her disgust. She felt her stomach twitching at a glance. How could she throw it into the soup pot? Who would dare to eat that kind of thing? "Mr. Fang, hurry up and trample it to death. It's so disgusting, I have goosebumps. What is that thing? Earthworm? Or snake?" Jiang Qin also couldn't stand this kind of ugly mollusk. She was most afraid of soft things like earthworms or snakes. "Mr. Fang, raise your chopsticks." "Yes, that's it. I'll take a picture and send it to my circle of friends." "Okay, I'm done, you can throw it away. Throw it off the cliff. It's uncomfortable to look at." Yuan Lin's mentality was quite good, but her suggestion was still to throw this thing away. Others also wanted to suggest that Fang Yan throw this thing away, but because their relationship with Fang Yan was not as close as that of Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, and because of the threat of Fang Yan's powerful force, they didn't dare to say it. Song Ge opened her mouth, but finally decided to temporarily stand aside. "It's just a pot of soup. It's fine if it's ruined, but it's not good to offend Fang Yan. Throw it away." This group of prodigal women, they don't even know how precious this thing is. Things like ginseng, deer antler, bear paw and so on are not even dregs in front of it. This kind of snake is called the blood eater, raised with poisonous blood. Every time it sheds its skin, a cycle will occur. There are already 2 white lines on its body, and one has already appeared, which means that it is about to have 3 cycles. After 100 revolutions, the snake could transform into a flood dragon. The flood dragon experienced thousands of tribulations, ascended to become a dragon, and controlled a region of rainwater. Of course, this was just a myth. However, most myths and legends actually had their origins. It was rare to see a vampire who was about to undergo his third transition. After it completed its third revolution, who knew what kind of existence it would become? Moreover, as a venomous snake that grew up on poisonous blood, its entire body was filled with poison. If the snake's venom was removed, its flesh would be unbelievably delicious. Fang Yan had eaten pufferfish before, and the taste of that thing couldn't be compared to this vampire. Of course, Fang Yan hadn't eaten a vampire yet. Because vampires were venomous snakes raised by humans, they were treated like precious treasures. Who would be willing to use one to make snake soup? Fang Yan gently sighed and said, "Since no one is willing to share it, then I will enjoy it alone. You can't say that I'm eating it alone." Fang Yan turned to the owner of the restaurant, who had rushed over after hearing the news, and said, "Prepare a glass bottle for me, the kind you use to make wine." "All right. Our restaurant makes our own plum wine. Sometimes, when customers like it, they will ask us for a few bottles to bring back to show filial piety to their elders. So our restaurant specially prepared a lot of glass bottles that can hold up to half a caddy. I will prepare them for you right now." The owner said, "Master Fang, you want to use it to make wine?" Song Go asked curiously. "Yes," Fang Yan said. "Let me tell you, this snake wine is good stuff. Not to mention mosquito bites and all kinds of snake venom. It can even get rid of malignant tumors. Of course, you have already rejected my good intentions, so this thing is mine alone." "It's that magical?" Song Go asked uncertainly. "It can also strengthen the kidneys," Fang Yan said softly. Regret appeared on Song Ji's face and she said, "Then when Master Fang's medicinal wine is done, I will ask for a cup to drink." "No problem," Fang Yan said with a smile. "That is, if you still have it when you come." Seeing Song Ge staring at the vampire in the middle of the chopsticks, Fang Yan raised the vampire and handed it over, saying, "For you?" Song Ge was so scared that she kept stepping back. She was still afraid of this weird thing. The owner quickly brought over a glass bottle with a rubber stopper. Fang Yan let the owner pull the stopper, and then used the chopsticks to stuff the vampire in. This thing didn't have eyes, but it was extremely sensitive. As soon as Fang Yan let go of the chopsticks, it turned around and wanted to escape. Unfortunately, it wasn't as fast as Fang Yan. Fang Yan had already stuffed the cork back into the bottle and blocked it inside. "Give me half a caddy of white wine. The strongest wine you have here," Fang Yan said. "Then Central Plains white? 65 degrees. The owner said. "Okay, that's it," Fang Yan said. So Fang Yan poured a bottle of Central Plains white with 65 degrees into the glass bottle. As soon as the white wine was poured in, the vampire desperately struggled and dodged in the bottle. Obviously it liked fresh blood, not this stimulating alcohol. Fang Yan closed the bottle and let it roll around inside. Bang, bang, bang. His strength was so great that the glass bottles were banging noisily from his slaps. Moreover, when Fang Yan deliberately put the bottle on the table to observe, the bottle kept shaking on the wooden table, as if it could fall or fly away at any time. Screech, screech, screech. The sound coming from its mouth became louder and louder, and then quieter. After 10 minutes, it finally stopped moving. "Is it dead?" Yuan Lin asked curiously. The little girl was very interested in new things, and she was the only one who ran behind Fang Yan to watch. Because she was lazy, she even put her chin on Fang Yan's shoulder. "It's pretending to be dead," Fang Yan said. "If we don't soak it for 7 days and 7 nights and open the bottle, it might escape. Of course, it will escape if it bites someone to death. This kind of snake is very vengeful." Everyone's hair stood on end. Xiaji said, "Really? This snake, it knows how to cheat? What kind of animal doesn't know how to cheat?" Fang Yan said with a smile. "People have their own ways to protect themselves, and animals also have their own ways to protect themselves. Besides, snakes are sinister creatures, so it's not strange that they know such strange tricks." Seeing such a monster swaying in front of them, Everyone lost their appetite. Fang Yin looked at everyone and said with a smile, "Are you all full? If you are, let's go back. I can also take this thing under the sun." On the way back to the hotel, everyone stayed away from Fang Yin, who wouldn't panic if they saw him holding a bottle like that, as if he was hugging his own son with a face full of love. After escorting everyone back to the hotel safely, Fang Yin returned to his room, holding the glass bottle in his hand, and looking at the vampire that was pretending to be dead. Fang Yan's face became cold. Conspiracy. This was a killing trap. The snake that jumped at Xiaji shouldn't have jumped out by accident, right? The snake was controlled by someone and scared the defenseless Xiaji on the top of the mountain. Xiaji accidentally fell off the cliff, and the only person who had the ability to save Xiaji was himself. If the person behind the scenes continued to attack while he was flying down the cliff to save Xiaji, he and Xiaji would probably be in fatal danger. Why didn't he attack immediately? And the vampire in his hand didn't attack until it was time to eat. If it had appeared when Xiaji fell off the cliff, then the situation might have been very different, right? Fang Yin didn't know that when the Snake Lord was about to control the poisonous snake to give Fang Yin a fatal blow, he was attacked by Tianjizi. Without the control of the snake chariot, the vampire's ability was greatly reduced, and he lost the best opportunity to attack. Who on earth dug such a big hole and wanted to bury himself in it? Fang Yin always felt that he was a good person, but why did a good person have so many disasters? I'm just a king talker. I'm not a big evil person. Why does everyone have to make life difficult for me? Fang Yin put the glass bottle on the windowsill, where the noon light shone. Sure enough, the vampire in the bottle was most afraid of sunlight. His body rolled and twitched in the bottle again. Fang Yin ignored it, closed the door and left the room. Big hole. Blood. Footprints. Fang Yin used a stick to check the viscosity of the blood and calculated the time. It happened to appear when Xiaji fell off the cliff. The big hole was also turned over new soil. According to Fang Yan's eyes, it was blasted out by someone's energy because the soil was too broken and turned into powder. Only strength qi could indiscriminately grind the soil into powder. Fang Yan's expression was solemn. What kind of person could have such internal strength? Also, the person blasted it down from the sky, which was why the hole felt like it was being compressed. Fang Yan imagined the battle in his mind and realized that there were some actions that even he couldn't do, or could do better than the person who did it. Thinking of this, Fang Yin felt a little relieved. Xixia Mountain wasn't small, but it wasn't big either. There were only two people who could have such skills. One was him, and the other one didn't need to say who it was. Tianjizi helped him avoid a disaster. But if it was Tianjizi, why did he let the poisonous creature escape? If you want a disciple, you have to be serious. If you work half-heartedly like this, who would want to follow you? Fang Yin thought in his heart. He walked to the high valley and bowed slightly towards the east. He knew that he could see his gratitude. Where even now? Fang Yin thought happily. Bastard. At a stream at the foot of the mountain, a middle-aged Taoist saw Fang Yin like a black dot and gritted his teeth. Bowing is considered repaying a debt of gratitude? How can there be such a good thing? Just you wait, you and I are fated. Don't think of escaping from my palm. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.